Okay, everybody, it's 7:15. I'm now calling the Sherborn Conservation Commission meeting of October 6th to order here. We'll have since it's a Zoom meeting, we'll have a roll call sort of present vote here. So please say present when you're, so we have Jacob.
Aye.
Michael, aye. Matt,
Aye, and present.
Courtney.
That
We'll take that as something. Carol
present.
and Kurt.
Present.
Okay, we can now start the meeting. Now, does anybody have any issues that have come up in the last 48 hours that we need to deal with today? Hearing none.
Can we add the 21, 23?
I thought we were doing that under the sites. We'll do that under site issues.
Okay.
And
Is it something we need to vote on?
I
Because
guess.
I would just amend the agenda to include it
Okay, fine. This is
if we're
something.
gonna vote on it. Yeah.
There's a change in a past order that I guess, okay, that makes some sense. I see the logic there. Okay, I move that we amend the agenda that we just heard in the last 48 hours about a needed change in a plan for, what's the address again?
21, 23 South Main Street.
23 Yes, South Main.
Minor plan modification.
Yeah, by the way, you're sounding, I don't know if you sound to others, you sound very muffled, Joyce. Not sure whether it's your microphone and hopefully not your throat. But maybe, okay. I move that we amend the agenda to include 2123 South Main Street under the 48-hour rule. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, aye. Jacob,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye,
Courtney,
Aye.
Darrell,
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Okay, now start the meeting. I will, as I started doing before, we now have an opening on the commission there, and I wanted to just, who's attending here under his daughter's name is Steve Scrimshaw. Is somebody, there's a guest who has submitted an application to the select board. And I think he'll be a useful addition to the board, I guess. If you want to say something, Steve, you're welcome to, or you don't have to.
I'll just say a quick word, but not long.
No,
I look forward to it. I'm really interested more in the natural side of this. And, I've experience in identifying wetland plants and plants in general. And I was on the Farm Pond Advisory Committee with Tom Trainer for a number of years. So I look forward to it. I don't know exactly what I'm getting into, but I guess I'll find out.
yes, you won't be the first to find out and to jump in. But thank you. Yes, Steve, I guess has been lived in town for a long time and has been a recently retired science teacher. So we'll see. It'll probably come up on the select board on the October 20th meeting. Okay, then let's we have quite an agenda tonight. The number of RDAs and NOIs and this and NREDs is close to a record for one little meeting. But we should be able to get through all this. It's almost 7:20. So I will just pause for a minute till we get there, because I'm not sure there's anything we can deal with in 1 minute. Other than, okay, while I'm stammering, it is now 7:20. We are now opening the request for determination of applicability for 18 Lake Street for proposed soil testing in the buffer zone, being presented by McIntyre Engineering and Septic Systems, Inc., representing Grisella Perkins. I will let,
Thank you. Dan McIntyre is on the call. So
Okay. Proceed.
Mrs. Perkins is starting to have problems with her septic system. It's the original one from 1960s. We were retained to design a replacement one. And there are some wetlands right next to her property. So we'll be digging in the buffer zone for the soil tests. I can share my screen if that would
Sure.
help.
I would.
There's 18 Lake Street. Do you see that come up?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So Lake Street, obviously up to the top of the screen. Driveway comes in here. She has her well in the front yard. The existing system is right in the back lawn area. And there is a wetland right over here in a kind of a wooded shrub area. But just from walking the lot, it looks like the wetland line is probably going to come right up to the edge of the lawn. We're currently having it delineated as part of the design phase, but we would like to get the soil testing done now while the weather is still good. Not much flexibility here. I think the system is going to be going back in where the existing system is, given the proximity of the well, the neighbor's well, and the wetland. So I'm not sure how much creativity we're going to have on this one here, but we are asking permission to go ahead and do the soil testing in the buffer zone.
Is that existing altered? Is that lawn or what's
That
the-
it is lawn now, yes.
Okay.
And this was subject to a filing a number of years ago to build this garage. So there's some paperwork on this site in your office.
Okay. Joyce, do you want to have any comments there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, still a little muffled to me. I don't know what others hear.
So I agree with Dan. I've written up conditions for this, that all disturbed areas are restored in kind, that there's no stockpiling, and there's no equipment storage in the 100-foot buffer zone. I don't think it's necessary to put up erosion control at this point.
Oh, it's all, yeah, there's no topo here, so it's all flat?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see in the meeting notes, the special conditions there. Do any commissioners have any comments? Questions?
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Seems to be.
Is-
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Is there anywhere actually to park construction equipment that's outside the buffer zone?
They wouldn't typically keep it over there. I just make that comment so that no one keeps a machine. I guess I would say only in the driveway. Parking can only take place in the driveway.
Right. Yeah, we always have that because of the issue of whether there's any leakages and of hydraulic and other kind of liquids that can happen without anybody noticing it overnight and things like that. Or when they're refueling. It's a standard condition that seems to work for most cases. Okay, I don't have, anybody else have any comments? Okay, I guess I don't see everybody in the, I'm gonna see everybody's picture. Get rid of that so I can see everybody. And people, you can also use the raise hand symbol. I try to pay attention to that too. Besides, people can just lift up the hand or people can just talk when I open it up like that. Okay. I don't have any questions myself. The conditions seem appropriate and we'll see it again when we get to the actual septic plan. That we'll be seeing, I assume, an NOI. In that case.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be an NOI. Yep.
Yeah, looks like it given the proximity to the wetlands. Although to the extent that it's in the existing place and the altered setting, it doesn't look like there'll be any difficulties there. Okay, I move that this is a -3 determination which means you could proceed with conditions as noted by Joyce. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I. Jacob,
Aye.
Courtney,
aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Okay, 6-0. Go forth and test,
Thank you very much.
and may the results be good. Let's see now. Moving, what in the world's going on here? Okay, we have 4 minutes to Bear Hill Road at 7:30. I guess, Dan, you've got a few things here in a row. In the 4 minutes, I guess it's probably not enough time to deal with. I guess not enough time to deal with South Main. I'll just make another announcement again that there's going to be a bunch of new members. There are a lot of new members. That even though there's the fall conference of the MACC, the Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners, is on the 15th. I'm not sure myself if I'm going. I have to go look at the agenda a little more carefully and deal with some family issues. What I would like to highlight for the new members is that I think for new members, they have a special deal and a whole number of Zoom settings to do what's called the fundamentals, which are basic. There's about 7 or 8 units for fundamental stuff there, of which I certainly recommend the one about the science of all of this. So you have a good sort of model scientific basis for what we're trying to do here. There's other kind of procedural stuff and like that, but you should go look at those and you can ask for advice, or maybe what we should do is look at the 8 modules at some point and see whether people who've taken them make some recommendations about which ones we think are some of the higher priority ones for people. I know I haven't done them all. I've sort of sat in on ones, but I always end up going to find more interesting stuff at the meetings. But I don't know whether, Carol, whether you'd say that all of them have of equal value. I think you've done them all, right? Have I?
Yeah, both Courtney and I have gone through the whole thing, gotten certified. I mean, they do have one that's kind of like an introduction to wetland regulations. I think is super helpful. I'd have to go and look at the website to see what it's called, but there's like a handful of like 2 or 3 like that really ground you in what it means to be on a conservation commission and how to regulate wetlands. So I think those are super helpful. The other good thing about being there is you can buy the publications that they have, which are kind of hard to get to otherwise, I think.
Well, then I guess maybe you and Courtney could just formulate which are the ones that I could see what I think. I always like the science one. We should just put out a list of the 2 or 3 top ones. And that way we can try to encourage folks to go to just at least start with those.
Yeah, I'm just looking real quick. Unit 102 is called the Wetlands Protection Act, Fundamentals, Process and Procedures. I think that's the one I was thinking of that is super helpful.
Yeah, I can't remember the number of mine. The one they're giving at the actual summit thing, it's always being held at Holy Cross College in Worcester. It's a nice setup that they have there.
Yeah.
Speakers and whatever else and all the different rooms, and it's a nice campus with lunch. And it's kind of interesting to meet other commissioners from other towns even during lunchtime and in meetings where they talk. So it's got a nice vitality there, and they have a lot of vendors show up with some stuff too. But yeah, the one that they have there is how to do an effective meetings and stuff like that, which hopefully I've never taken it, but hopefully I'm doing all right on that score. I'm always open to comments on how I run these meetings. Okay, so we'll try to get a list of that. It is now 7:30. But we'll get that list. So I guess Carol, if you could see it, just send it out to us, your ideas of what might be good. Okay, 7:30. We now have we're reopening the public hearing for the notice of intent for 29 Bear Hill Road, proposed replacement of a failed septic system. Being presented by, again, McIntyre Engineering and Septic Systems, Inc., and representing Lisa Mulcahy. McKay.
Mulcahy, Lisa Mulcahy.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
And she is on the phone call tonight as well.
Okay, good. Hi there, Lisa. I'll just say that. Okay, let's. Oh yeah, now I see it there. Okay, let's go on that one there. That one we had discussed a bit last time, if I recall. How do you want to do this? Maybe you want to pull up the
Well-
plan to refresh?
Let's ask Deborah if all the green cards are in.
Ah,
All the green cards are in.
All right.
You're hired, Dan.
yes, exactly. You got it done from wherever you were vacationing.
Okay. So I just pulled up the septic plan. Can everyone see that?
Mhm.
Okay. So to orientate you, Bear Hill Road is down at the bottom of the screen. The house kind of in the middle of the lot. This was constructed in the mid-1960s. There is a wetland on a portion of the property and on a budding property. We had this delineated by Goddard Consulting and all the flags located by survey. The bulk of the wetland is kind of a wooded wetland toward the rear of the property. It's fed by a drainage culvert from the storm drains on Bear Hill Road down in the lower right-hand corner, and follows kind of created a channel over time through the woods and then feeds the wetlands. The existing septic system is right directly behind the house, right in here. The well is in the front of the house. We tested in 3 different locations down here, kind of right next to the garage and off to the rear of the house. We selected the side of the garage as being what we feel is the preferred spot for the new septic system. It allows us to build a new system in an area that's previously disturbed with minimal new tree removal. And it also allows us to improve the setbacks to both the groundwater table and to the abutters wells. The existing system in the backyard meets Title V requirements of 100 foot to the abutters well over to the left, but not the Sherborn regulations. So we've relocated to the side of the garage to meet the Sherborn regulations and the well offset. The proximity to wetlands at its closest point is about 27 feet right here. And then obviously the rest of it is further away than that. This particular area is pretty much a lawn area. There are, I think, 2 big pine trees next to an existing shed right in here that will have to come down to install the system. And the yard will be raised up to meet the elevation of the walkway along the side of the garage. And then we slope down toward the wetlands. As mitigation for the tree removals, we're proposing 2 native trees, which we talked about last time, that I believe were actually installed today over in this part of the buffer zone to mitigate those 2 tree removals. And we're also proposing this area right here that was cleared at one point. We're proposing that to be kind of a no disturb area in the future, or no mow area, to kind of, so that buffer zone kind of comes back naturally. So from an environmental perspective, we think this is a significant improvement. We get a failed system out of the groundwater table. We improve the abutters wells, and we're really not disturbing any trees in the wetland per se. We've got those 2 trees in the buffer zone that need to come down, but overall, we feel it's minimal impact. So with that, we can turn it over for questions.
Okay. Joyce, do you want to add anything before?
Dan, approximately how much area of lawn are you providing as mitigation approximately?
I didn't quite hear you, Joe. How much area of lawn?
Yeah, but about how much area of that lawn is mitigation? Can you give me a square footage approximate?
This area down here?
Yeah,
It's probably about 20 by 30, maybe 500 square feet, something like that.
all right. And then approximately how far from the toe of slope to the edge of wetlands?
It's probably on the order of right at the closest point, probably about 5 to 8 feet. But that's where the lawn goes to now.
Okay. I'll let the other commission members, ask a question. I think that he's done the only thing he can do out here as far as location of the septic. With respect to wells and all.
Mhm.
I can't imagine where else this would go. And it's always good to get a failing septic out of the groundwater, so.
Mhm. Any other comments?
What is on the in the edge in the slope, the new slope that's going straight down to the closest area of the wetlands? What is that? What's going to be on that? Is that going to be lawn on the side of that slope or something else? So the area that you were showing, the closest, I think 20 something feet.
We're proposing to seed it and then put an erosion control matting on top of it to prevent erosion until the vegetation grows.
How will that be maintained since it's so close to the wetlands? And we'd like to get a little more buffer there. Is that something that,
I think you can handle it in a couple of different ways. It's a 3-to-1 slope, which is kind of the steepest we'd want to design a vegetated slope for, which is why we put the matting down. A 3-to-1 slope is mowable, but it could easily be left unmowed too as an unmowed area. And then that buffer zone vegetation would start to creep up that hill, which wouldn't be a bad thing.
oh yeah, it certainly would, given the proximity, it would be nice to have.
Obviously, in this area right here, that's basically the connection between the side yard and the backyard. That would want to be maintained as lawn
Sure.
in here. But
I
closer to the wetland, that could certainly be an unmowed slope.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get, I guess to get to Jacob's point, it would be nice to, whether that some of that, it's partially to pull in, maybe, and also pull in the monuments that I see that you have there. So that, I guess, right, I guess on one hand, whether it, I guess as a slope, could it be maintained just unmaintained, or I guess what, depending on what the applicant, Lisa, feels, whether that could be left to be unmaintained or maybe just mowed once a year or something. Trying to think of what might be workable there to sort of get since that's so close, to get a better buffer zone.
Yeah, I
Like-
think the mowing once or twice a year might be preferred, so we don't get any large trees growing on that slope that might affect the septic system.
Yeah, and I would suggest maybe doing like either a native grass mix or a native meadow mix there. It just happens that our septic system has a really similar bank like that, and this summer, that was what did the best, was the grasses and everything that were not mowed were great habitat. We got all sorts of birds and everything. So I would recommend that. And then mow it once a year to keep out the invasives.
Okay. So we're gonna Just before we get to just cover all the issues, we'll come back to how we specify that. So it looks like we have that. Are there any other questions and as to other parts of this project that anybody has before we hone in a little bit on that? Yeah, okay, now I got everybody here. Let's see, because there is a draft of an order of conditions in the meeting folder. And some of the more special conditions on the that are appropriate are having some monuments to demarcate areas not to manage beyond to protect the wetlands. There's the 2 trees that we've talked about. There's the area lawn that will be naturally revegetated behind the driveway area there. And there's also a condition that we typically have where there's no pesticides and herbicides used in the 100-foot buffer zone or the resource area, as well as, and there's only a slow release nitrogen used in the outer buffer zone. That the inner buffer zone does not have any fertilizer generally, and it's only nitrogen, no phosphorus, no phosphate, since that's something that's not needed around here, at least in most places. That's what's in our draft there. Carol, do you want to say something, or you have your hand raised still from before?
That was from before.
Okay, just want to make sure since I try to follow that stuff. Okay, and then, yeah, I don't have any other issues, bigger issues other than, again, by that slope, since it's so close to the wetlands, that it would be nice to get more of a buffer zone there. And one thing I would say on the 2 trees, basically, we've talked about, we have 2 trees, 2-inch in diameter, be planted as shown there. Final species to be reviewed, approved by the Conservation Commission or its agent prior to installation. Those trees have already been, those species have already been done?
Yeah, we talked about those trees at the
Yeah.
last meeting.
Right,
And I think the conclusion was that it was an exempt activity to plant those trees, but they were river birch.
okay. But no, in terms of, as a mitigation thing, it's useful to note. Even though,
And we'll note it on the as-built plan as well, the
okay.
final locations.
And I guess since it's mitigation, we want to make sure they survive. I guess the condition would be that it'd be nice if they survive 2 years. Is what we typically have for plantings. So I would change the draft of the order conditions that we have. It's a 2-year period, Joyce, in there. What were you going to say, Joyce?
The 3 bounds, could they move closer to the toe slope of the septic system?
Joyce, I'm having such a hard time making out your
I
voice.
don't know how to make it, I'm sorry, I'm working from home today, so I don't know how to make it better.
Oh, okay.
Can the 3 bounds, can they move closer to the toe of slope?
Yeah, I think we can. This one down here, we could move right up in here, and that was intended to kind of denote, the no mow area. This one in the middle, we can certainly move that up further. These 2 right here, we may want to move up closer to the top of slope if it's going to be a no mow slope. But I'll leave that up to the commission where they want those, but they can certainly be moved.
All right, question is, how much of the slope do you think, in terms of just protecting the septic, that we want to have it like an annual mow? Do you need, I don't know, between Joyce and Dan, what's your experience in terms of?
I would say right between the 224, 225 contour, right through here where it says 3-to-1 slope.
Okay.
Would be a reasonable location for the no mow area.
Okay. Fine, so we'll use the 225 line as to move it into.
With the
And-
exception, as I discussed up here, where.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
gonna
Yeah,
be
I'm
a-
only talking, right there. That bound would move right to sort of to the,
Maybe right where my hand is, something like that.
exactly, right, perfect. Okay, and then it'll be aligned, right? Okay, that would be fine, because that gets you. After that, the wetland moves away, so you get much more of a buffer zone for the wetlands. I don't know, before I continue any further, I can't tell, was it you, Elizabeth, who was here for this thing? Were there any, for the public wants to make any comments on this?
No, this is not the property.
Oh, okay, fine. I couldn't remember which. There's too many
Right.
things going on for me. So. Sorry to put you on the spot there. Okay, so if we move so we'll move 3 of the bounds in there, and we're basically, I guess, to keep a simplicity, that would be the no mow beyond there. And with basically, I think they could remove invasives, but I guess it would be, but that area would be seeded with, what do we feel comfortable with saying that area would be seeded with? What Carol suggested?
I think a landscaper should be able to do that pretty easily.
No, but do we want to, sometimes we just say what the mix is, or.
Oh, yeah, I was suggesting some kind of native meadow mix that's appropriate for the Northeast.
Okay,
I'm sure you could get that from the
sure.
wetland plant, whatever it is.
Yeah, New England wetlands, I think they have a
Yeah.
slope mix or a conservation mix. So
Yeah.
we can-
Okay,
Yes.
fine. So we'll have that beyond the 225. And we won't, and we're not going to specify be inside the 225 for certain simplicity of implementation. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Let's see. So we'll have another condition about that. In there. Yeah, and in the future, we do need to have, this is fairly clear because it's bounded, because there's not a lot of room to move on things there. We just have to remember on the NOIs, Dan, that we have the sort of square footage of area that's being altered and added to for in the 0 to 50 and the 50 to 100 buffer is one of the things we ask, one of the things that we ask for NOIs. In this case, it's not a, it's a fairly, it's not going to affect things. Okay. Joyce, are there any other conditions that we should go over that,
No, it's pretty standard.
right?
I'm gonna, there's no monitoring of planting. I'm gonna make sure there's nothing reference to monitoring in there.
Say that again, yeah,
I'm gonna make sure there's no reference to monitoring plants.
right. Oh, other than, well, we do want to see that everything's come back, and I guess we're doing a 2 growing season because of the trees.
So are
Or
you
do
sure
we-
you wanna, for a septic system, are you sure you wanna do 2 growing seasons for the plantings?
I
Is
guess
it
we could
there-
do one, I guess we can do one year season, because I guess normally we're worried about shrubs, the trees. It should be, I'm just concerned that whenever we have tree plantings or shrub plant, when we have shrub plantings, we want to get a certain percentage that last 2 years. Has been our norm. The question is, do we want to change that for, even though it's just 2 trees and
Well, it's gonna take them time to get this stabilized anyway, so you've got time for the trees to get through the winter and into the spring growing. But this is again for a septic repair, and you all have to decide if you want them to, let's just say they sell the property and as a septic repair, move on. Order has to stay open through those 2 years.
Joyce, are you suggesting that by the time the project is finished, we will know whether the 2 trees have have succeeded well enough to last there?
I think that due to the elevation of the lawn and depth to groundwater, I think they have a good chance of surviving in this particular situation.
Yeah, I guess I'm not willing to do it less than one, like a growing season at least.
Okay,
At least in my case, I don't know whether others feel, whether other commissioners feel whether to stick with the two, whether to compromise on the one or do less. What does anybody else think? Courtney, I'll put you on the spot.
Well, I mean, if the order isn't closed out, that doesn't necessarily mean they can't sell their house, right?
Sure.
it doesn't mean that. You're right.
Right. It's not the end of the world, but
Nope.
I feel like with two river birches, they're either gonna start growing quickly or they'll bite the bullet, you know, it should declare itself pretty fast. I'm fine with one growing season.
Carol?
I mean, I don't know. I could go either way because, I mean, we just had a summer where everything I planted in my yard pretty much died. So I can see that 2 growing seasons is not a bad idea because it just, you know, if something dies, it's, you know, the homeowner knows they need to replace it in the next season. So I would probably vote for that because I just think that we're facing an awful lot of variability due to climate change.
Any other members want to weigh in since we have now the spectrum from 1 to 2 or?
I'd be okay with one.
Okay, since more limited often when we have the 2, it's because it's demarcating a much more bigger area. That's part of why I'm willing to change a little. This is a little different than a lot of the other plantings. Okay, I'll just, based on the straw poll, let's just do the 1 growing season. Let's see, are there any other issues here? Okay, we have the conditions, we've gone through them all. Dan, you have any other, Dan or Lisa have any questions? So about, otherwise I'll close the hearing and then we can move forward.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. I think I'd like to update the plan showing the new bounds, the no mode demarcation line, so it's clear.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then
no, that's gonna be
specify the
essential.
seed mix.
Yeah,
What will
we
your
always get into
revised date-
trouble.
Will your revised date be today?
Yeah, it'll be revised later on tonight.
Okay, that's yeah.
Good, just get it to us, because if we close the hearing and we move on to approving this, we don't want to get stuck since we have to issue our order of conditions within a certain time frame, but we need that revised plan. So once in a while, we get a little nervous that we sometimes don't get the final plans before we do all that, but this seems pretty straightforward. Okay. There are no other issues from anybody. I'm going to move to close the hearing.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Courtney,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Okay, hearing's closed. Now we go to, let's see, any discussion? Given all the mitigation and the conditions that we've been talking about, does anybody have any questions about that this project could be approved? Or I do some findings? When I make,
Go ahead and find some stuff.
okay, go ahead. Okay, I will dig around here and I'll get back to you.
Okay. Oh, we were supposed to create a distraction while you did that. I misread that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, I think we find that the proposed project consisting of decommissioning existing septic tank and leach pit, removal of 2 trees, and installation of a replacement septic system of a new, better quality, and that the work is in the 100-foot buffer zone as well as the 50-foot no alteration zone. Planting of 2 trees, limit installation of 4 wetland bounds markers, abandonment and natural revegetation of some lawn area, and relocation of the existing shed to an existing driveway, and the naturalization of much of the graded area on the sides of the buffer zone between the septic to increase the buffer between the septic and the wetland area. That this project is mostly occurring in already altered buffer zone area, and with that above mitigation, that let's see, that this project will not result in adverse impacts to the adjacent wetland resources. And let's see, what else do I want to say? That the mitigation and the conditions described are necessary to protect the wetland resource area for this project, including the erosion control that's needed. And let's see. This work is relevant to much of the interests of the Wetland Protection Act and the Sherborn's wetland bylaw. I won't go through those specifics. Given those findings, that I move that we approve the project subject to these findings and the conditions discussed.
Second.
Okay, we're always working on this process. We'll get through this one. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I. Jacob,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Okay. 6-0. Go forth and improve the septic system.
Well, thank you very much. Do you have a sense of when the paperwork will get to Ellen so we can schedule the Board of Health meeting?
I'll email Ellen tomorrow that it was approved, and it will take time to get everybody's signatures, but it should be sometime next week for the final paperwork.
Thank you very much.
You hear that, guys? That's the signature challenge.
So
Okay.
just in the next couple, we have a few minutes here. So Deborah has placed in the box signature pages for everything that you approved tonight. So if everybody could make a point to go out there this weekend, hopefully, or between that now and Monday, or now and Tuesday morning, and sign this, it would be very helpful.
I'm gonna get there first.
Oh, yeah, well, we're gonna have a prize for who gets their top 4 people get an ice cream cone.
We have a camera set up monitoring this.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
the police station's right there, so.
yeah, right. Okay, so we have 15 minutes, so we can cover some things here. Why don't we
We could do the climate resiliency thing. That's gonna take like 2 minutes.
okay, fine. I was gonna go to the other site thing, but let's do that. I don't know if
We'll
people,
get them both done.
I think we should.
Yeah.
And shall.
Did,
Do you want to share your screen of that thing?
oh,
Do it. So people
sure.
know what it is.
Okay, okay. Getting there.
Okay, you let me know. I could do it quick too.
No, I can do it. I can do it. It's a challenge.
Okay, fine. Basically, I'll start talking.
Oh.
The town of Sherborn is based on the vote at the last town meeting, where there was a student initiative warrant article to declare a climate emergency. And part of that, which is done by a lot of towns in Massachusetts, is to come up what's called a climate action plan, which is a way in which towns and many groups, it's a countrywide kind of term, for coming up with what it takes to really meet certain carbon reduction targets. That if everybody hasn't already heard about that, the fact that that we're behind the 8 ball on the climate change challenge, and there's this new thing of net zero by 2050 is the attempt to get down all to sort of have net zero emissions by the year 2050. That's probably too late for a lot of impacts from climate change, but it will certainly lessen the magnitude of some of those impacts over time. And part of reaching 2050 net zero is having interim goals of 50% reduction by 2030, and then 75% reduction by 2040. And the town has a sustainability department with a couple of part-time sustainability coordinators. And there's also a town energy and sustainability committee that works on various projects, which I happen to be the chair of. Anybody interested in that committee can let me know. But yeah, so therefore, we've been working on various parts of a plan for that to present to the town. But one of the coordinators, the sustainability coordinators, were able to get a grant to help hire some consultant to help sort of oversee the help with the process of developing a climate action plan, which should be done with lots of town reps, as well as working with residents. There'll be a number of public hearings to get residents involved, and over the next basically almost 8 or 9 months. Draft plan should come out in May, roughly. And there is as part of the initial phase of this, sorry, Courtney, I'm just going to plow in, but the initial phase is working with the consultant is going to develop some preliminary draft measures and steps to take for over the next 8 years, in a sense, for 2030, much more concretely. And then it's a little bit more sort of indicative beyond that period. And they're focusing starting with a lot of the town departments. And they want to have, as part of working on this plan, as you see in front of you here, which hopefully you've been reading, is that they're talking about getting members of each of the significant town bodies on what's called a climate resiliency working group. There's 2 aspects to a climate action plan, I should say. One is reducing our emissions, and the other thing is learning how to build up our resiliency, which is a lot of issues around flood control, the increased precipitation, the severity of events, as we've been seeing, and and how, well, in our case, a lot of it is flooding, are major issues, as we've been hearing in the news in Florida and other states. And even in our town, we have some flooding issues and figuring out conduit capacities that might be superseded in the next few decades, that we need to start planning ahead of time so that our infrastructure is prepared for some of the increased precipitation and other kind of events. So they're looking for somebody from each of the groups. And as they say here, they want to have 3 workshops with this group, December, February, and April. This group here, I think, is mostly town groups, town committees and departments will be on this, such as the select board, advisory will have a representative, the tree warden will be there because of the importance of trees. There'll be DPW, the planning board, the Board of Health, and Conservation Commission has been requested to appoint somebody, recommend somebody to join this group, this working group. And you can see that there are a few meetings and give feedbacks on some of the action items and such. So the agenda item here is who on the commission is interested in this issue. And so somebody could be our representative on this working group. So feel free to ask questions and or express interest in working on this.
Don't all jump in at once. I mean, basically, they've defaulted to sending stuff to me, so I'm hoping or wondering if anybody has a burning desire, especially for point number 3 here, being a champion. I don't know if I'm a champion, so figured I'd check with the rest of the commission if anybody really wants to get involved. Otherwise, I'm happy to do it. Crickets.
I guess everybody could, you could feel free to say no, which I guess is by silence, I guess. So nobody else is interested, is that it? Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sure there'll be chances in the future for, you know, citizens at large to weigh in as well. It's not just like this is your only chance to.
Right.
weigh in.
Yes, we will all be weighing in as citizens, or can weigh in as citizens, and whoever does go to this working group, we'll bring back to the commission any of their action steps and other kind of findings and issues that are relevant, excuse me, to what the Conservation Commission does. Okay, I guess Courtney, you get to do that. I guess I'm going to move that we appoint Courtney Eck as the Conservation Commission representative to the town's Climate Resiliency Working Group. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, good. Most people can do that. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I. Jacob,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney.
Abstain.
Oh, really? Oh, geez, I'm not sure what I think of that. Matt?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Courtney, go forth and champion. And bring back the stuff here, since we all have to do something, since roughly 85% of the carbon emissions in the town come from our homes and cars. So that's the task that all of us each have as a group, and it's a lot easier to do it as a group that we have to do significant efforts in the next bit here, as well as try to get our electricity from renewable energy. Take the opportunity to say that the town will be trying to do a program where we can source all the renewable energy as a group, probably get a better competitive price from a vetted supplier. It's called an aggregation plan. That will come up in the next 6 months or so. And that's one of the easiest ways for us to reduce our carbon emissions is as a town as a whole. It'll cost some more on our bills, but it's a fairly low cost method to reduce your carbon emissions and prepare for electrifying your cars with clean energy, as well as hopefully with heat pumps and other things, do your air conditioning and heating. And that's the path forward. That's the vision of how this is going to work out. All renewable based electricity, doing electric cars with a lot of heat pumps for heating and cooling. And that is, in a way, probably the vast majority of how we're going to get towards net zero. Okay, I'm through with my proselytizing and my pitch, and with my other hat on, we'll go on from there. We have 6 minutes. Joyce, time to do South Main?
Yes, and I'm gonna share my screen.
Yep.
And hey, Joyce, I'm Matt with Bowler Engineering. I just chimed in because I wasn't sure if the commission was going to have any questions, so I didn't want to leave you hanging giving our presentation.
Why don't you, if I don't say anything right, please speak up.
Okay.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, so the applicants have submitted a minor plan modification to the Board of Health to move the tank and the pump chamber from this side of the project over to this side. The limit of work doesn't change. The connections change. I'm going to switch to, you can see the tanks are now over here, and the piping changes are in this location here. So really it's moving the tanks from over here to over here. The limit of work doesn't change. That's the minor plan modification. They have also submitted, as is required in their order of conditions, a dewatering plan should they need to do any dewatering. And this is their dewatering plan. They would be pumping, they would have a pump in the excavation that would come out into the, are you able to see this new plan here?
Yeah,
With colors on it, and it's located outside the buffer zone. They're going into a dewatering bag, which is a big bag that the hose goes into, so that it is then filtered through straw bales that wrap around the area here. While it is perched on above the slope, it's a long distance. If you remember this, while there's a slope here, it's very well stabilized, and then it flattens out before it gets down towards the wetlands. So in the event they need to dewater, it would come up into this area here. I'm not sure where else they could put a dewatering that wouldn't in fact pump the water onto an abutting property or into the streets. So and this is the plan that they've added, and then the minor modifications of the plan with moving the tanks. Any questions?
is anything going to change in terms of the tank changing? Does that change anything else in terms of what the finished project will look like, or any of the landscaping or anything? Is there any changes?
So the grading is pretty much the same. Not pretty much, the grading is the same. Matt, if I'm saying this wrong, the grading is the same one side to the other. I don't know if they had the tanks over there the first time. And then just, when you look, you can see the grading is kind of the same over here. And again, the limit of work doesn't change.
Agreed. Yeah, the only visible difference would be the manholes that come to grade will be on one side rather than the other, but no changes to the limit of work or anything visible or vegetation or anything like that.
Okay. As to the dewatering part, I guess the issue is how do we ensure that we're not having erosion in the buffer zone there as the waters.
So one of the requirements is, while they have submitted this plan, they are also required to contact conservation if they are going to be doing dewatering a day or two in advance, so that we can plan to be on site to be sure that there's no issues.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's not just concerned that depending on with the rains these days, after the whole dry summer, what I imagine you're confronting some dewatering needs, or will be. So it's not a matter of if as opposed to when. Okay, yeah, I'm just concerned about that steep slope, but I guess essentially we can get that if there's any signs of erosion, we'll get restoration of that slope there.
Or if it completely doesn't work, then we'll have to find a new solution.
Okay, but good that we have notification so we can monitor this. And I'm just not sure whether you need some extra erosion control that could be installed on the slope there. If we're getting a breakthrough or something. Is there
Keep in
some?
mind, we already have this erosion control barrier behind this.
Oh, okay, that's true. Yeah.
So they've got 2 rows of straw bales plus the erosion control silt fence that they put up along the edges.
Okay, does that seem sufficient? That's sufficient in your experience?
Well, what if it's not if it's not controlled, what's going to end up happening is the water's going to come this way back into their hole. So if they need to pump out a lot of water, they're gonna have to figure out an alternative, because if it happens too quickly and there's too much volume again, hopefully this is just to take care of whatever might be standing in the hole because of a rainstorm, because they're perched so high above groundwater.
Okay. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions, issues about this?
Well, that was my major concern there, but I think all my questions have been answered, so.
Okay, since the dewatering plan is generally something that just gets approved separately, it's part of a separate condition, I will just make a motion. I move that the changing of where the it's the distribution tank,
Septic tank and pump chamber.
the pump, septic tank and the pump chamber from one side of the field to the other within the limit of work is a minor amendment without any impact on the wetlands. It's a motion.
Second,
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Carol,
aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Jacob.
Aye.
Okay, fine. Go forth and get this thing done and be careful when you dewater.
We will, and just thank you to Joyce and the commission for taking this on very short notice.
Yes. Well, we always try to be responsive to the.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So,
So
not everybody views us that way, but we try.
we'll write a letter to the file and get it over to the Board of Health so that they have a record.
Cool. Excellent. We'll have the contractor make sure to notify you before any dewatering occurs.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 8:15. We now have an RDA for 28 Farm Road for proposed replacement of failed septic system. McIntyre Engineering and Septic Systems, Inc., representing Lori Ann Robinson. Okay.
Good
take it
evening
away.
again.
Yep. Fancy meeting you.
Let me share my screen here. All right. This is 28 Farm Road. Farm Road is up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. The home is situated here, and the new septic system is located in the backyard area. All the work is actually outside the 100-foot buffer zone for the septic system. But we realize that the only access to the work site is along an existing driveway that comes pretty close to an intermittent stream that runs under Farm Road and tails off to a larger wetland here. So we sort of, out of an abundance of caution, since we know the contractor is going to be using this road, we thought we'd do an RDA filing, so it's on your radar screen. This is a gravel road now that they use to access the barn. Obviously, the larger construction vehicles may tear it up a little bit more than the pickups and the cars that go down there now. So we've added erosion control along the edge of that, and noted that there may also be some tree trimming for the larger trucks. They may have to cut some branches off some of the low-hanging trees to get through here. But that's the only work that, it's hard to describe it as work, but the only activities near the, within the buffer zone of that resource area. The rest of it is outside the 100-foot buffer.
Is there some reason why the erosion control is stopping at the 50-foot versus going a bit further?
It's basically, that's where the topography stops there. It starts to head back down toward, away from the wetland at that point.
Okay, does that make sense to you, Joyce? Have you been there?
Yes, this is the only access to the rear of the property, and as he described it, it makes perfect sense.
Oh, you know, I'm just talking about the extent of the erosion control, whether that's just a reasonable point to stop the erosion control versus request
Oh, I see what you're saying.
additional erosion control that goes a little bit further down the driveway since it's still in the outer buffer zone.
I think if it's not too much trouble, I think you're right. It should extend to the 100-foot.
Okay.
We can do that. That's not an issue.
Okay. So we'll extend the erosion control there, and you're not doing any more work on the driveway itself, basically, other than there's no tree cutting. And there'll just maybe be some branch cutting.
Correct.
But the driveway itself is, I think we see, as you said, if there's any rutting or other kind of stuff there, or that'll be restored.
Yeah, they may have to smooth that off when they're done if they do rut it up, but it seems like a pretty sturdy road. It's been there quite a while.
Okay, you're not adding gravel. You're basically just maintaining it, using it as is.
Exactly.
Okay, as long as there's no additional kind of changing of the driveway itself in the buffer zone. And let's start areas. Okay. Do other members have, well, I'm thinking a little, other members have any comments or questions? Or you say if you're okay.
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm just having troubles. Can you zoom in a little bit just so we can see where the wetland lines are on that?
Let's see.
And then scroll up so we can see the septic system.
Oh, septic system, yeah. So the yellow is the 100-foot buffer.
Got you. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the commission? Whoops.
Nope, looks reasonable.
Okay. I move that this is approved with a termination of equability that is a -3 with the conditions of the erosion control up to the 100-foot buffer zone, that any disturbance on the driveway or around the drive, or even on the upland side of the driveway, is restored as needed. And there's no stockpiling of anything in the buffer zone or construction equipment. And some tree limbing branches is allowed, but no cutting. I think I already said that maybe. Okay, that's my motion.
I can.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, aye. Matt,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Okay. Done.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, go improve septic systems again. Let's see now. Let's see, 23. We have 7 minutes before the next RDA at 8:30. We've dealt with the see, going down. Dealt with the working group. I'll say something on in terms of looking at our discussion items here. That okay, there's minutes. We have one set of minutes that I'll put up. They're short. We'll do that a little later. On the new agent administrative hire, we are still have the job listed. We are still waiting for an experienced applicant. I would want to just put on the table to inform people that our current interim agent is interested in the position, but not available till sometime in 2023. In the meanwhile, she's willing to also step up and give some more time so that it makes the burden on Courtney and me and others less, as well as some things might not be done as well as we'd like on terms of land management and some other activities. But that it gives us, it's a little uncertain, but others can comment, but I've been happy with the performance, with her performance, and that I'd like to keep playing it out, that we see if we get a good experienced person who's comparable, that would show, that might apply between now and then, that I think we can try to work out a way and see how it goes, that we can function well in the interim to see what her plans might be in 2023. So we sort of have I think we have something that works for now, and that we can get but if somebody comes up that we feel is experienced and would do us a good job, then we can certainly entertain that candidate if and when that candidate arises. Does anybody have any comments on that condition or that approach?
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll see. Joyce still seems to be happy doing this, and try to give her more and more, and who knows how her plans will play out. It'll make it a little tricky for some of our budgeting stuff, but we'll figure that out. That's coming up in the next few months is our budget season. Okay, so that's why we're not driving ourselves crazy with dealing with candidates who might not be adequately sufficient, well experienced, let's put it that way, like we did last time, and we felt like we had to try to hire somebody and train them, which was a difficult task that in the end unfortunately didn't work out due to other reasons, but that it's quite a learning curve. So I'd like to play it out without that. Okay, that's one item. We have 3 minutes. And going on that, let's see, on the agenda there, I don't think is there a warrant, Deborah? I hadn't seen that.
No, there is not.
Okay,
There will be next time. Not
okay,
this.
fine. Okay, then let's see. Do you have any quick site issues, Joyce? Besides that, one we dealt with?
No.
Okay. In the 2 minutes, I will take it on. Why don't we run through the administrative approvals?
We had 226 Western Ave was Courtney did. It's for soil testing. 2527 North Main, Courtney did.
When you don't just say whether it was out of jurisdiction or.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was
I just
out
wanted,
of jurisdiction.
I just wanted to make note that I didn't do those. That's all.
I did it.
Yeah,
I should be.
They were both out of jurisdiction. 100 Maple Street is a new septic system. It is out of jurisdiction. 126 Coolidge was tree removal. It is in jurisdiction. I sent them a request for determination of applicability. They would be perfect applicants for your new tree ruling thing. 22 East Goulding Street East was soil testing, and that was approved. And 267 South Main was soil testing, and that was approved.
Okay. Yes, I guess we can talk later. We're gonna have a little gap at by 9:30 because there's gonna be a hearing that will be continued. And we could just go over where we are on the tree removal policy, but I think we should have a draft we have the beginnings of a draft from even last time that I think we should start applying, even if we don't have approved policy. We'll just see how it works in each of these cases.
Okay, since we did that, just that list, there were 2 additional ones: 6 Russet Hill Road pool, that was approved, and 7 North Main Street deck, and that was approved.
Okay, good. We'll see that in the minutes. Okay. Let's see, we're gonna have I guess we've done, other than the minutes. That's the other items, and we'll do that in the next gap. It's 8:30. And now turning to a request for determination of applicability for 15 Pleasant Street for proposed soil testing in the buffer zone for a septic system. Karen Skinner Catroni,
So
representing Joyce Simon.
Karen isn't here tonight. Eric Dickinson from is here. He's the engineer on the project. This is for soil testing in the rear yard. It is in the buffer zone at 15 Pleasant Street. The test pits are in existing lawn or just over the edge of previously disturbed area. I believe it will come back as a notice of intent once they have the design done. But as far as soil testing goes, access and the location are approvable under the request for determination.
Okay, so do you have a plan? Is there a,
I drew up a list of conditions for the determination that there's no tree removal permitted under this application. All disturbed areas will be restored in kind, no stockpiling, and no equipment storage in the 100-foot buffer. Again, this is another one where it's a flat area. I don't believe they need to put up erosion control prior to doing the work.
and it's already existing altered area,
Correct.
lawn, basically. It'll be, and the condition, and one of the conditions is restoring it.
Correct.
Okay. I guess, do we really have a plan?
There is no plan. There's no plan. There was a sketch. There's a sketch where, if you look at it under, hold on a moment.
Yeah, I didn't see a plan anywhere. but-
There isn't a plan. There's one moment. I'm just trying to find the. For some reason, it's not in the meeting folder, but there was an aerial.
I don't
photo.
I don't have a copy of it either. It was taken off the town GIS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess going forward in the future, I guess it would be useful, actually, for you.
I thought I had downloaded it to the meeting file, but apparently it did not. It's been an odd week.
Okay, to make it a little easier, at least for me in prepping for the meetings, for any RDA or NOI, I almost would like it to make sure that it is a clearly marked file in the meeting folder that begins with the word plan. And even if it has to be extracted from the RDA document itself, so that it's just, because that's what I use a lot to prepare for the meeting rather than dig around, that it would be useful to just have a file that's called the plan. And that way, at least it would help me and it'd be clearer. And that hopefully it's a color version. So sometimes lately we've been getting the black and white versions. I'm not quite sure why we end up with black and white versions versus the nice color ones that Dan can show us. But okay.
If I'm going to share my screen, give me 2 seconds.
Oh, you have the plan there? Yeah, just do it quickly.
Right. See, this is the test. Let me show. So driveways here, access is around here. There's trees in the backyard. This is taken without leaves on them. And then there's a test pit proposed right here. And then there's a test pit proposed right here. And they are on either side of a leaning, I think it's a, not an ash, but some kind of a tree, but it's on either side of a big tree. And then the wetland is over in this area here.
Okay.
The front yard has the on-site well.
Oh,
Yeah, right in there. Yeah.
So there's like a lawn, again, test pit here, and then one right about here.
Yes.
They're on this side of the property.
Okay, doesn't look like there's much choice there in this case.
No.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission have any questions? Okay, I move that we do for the determination equability of a -3 with the conditions discussed.
Second,
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Courtney,
I,
Carol,
I,
Kurt,
Aye.
Jacob. Jacob, you're muted.
I,
Matt,
again,
I mean,
Aye.
okay. Fine. Testing is approved and you can move there. Okay, so we've done that. I now, moving right along, I am going.
Thank you.
Yes. And hopefully.
Thank you,
we get
Joyce.
Plans, let's see here. Okay, so we have till, it's 8:30. We have till 8:45. What I'd like to do is pull up, even though I just put these minutes in recently, they're fairly short, so we can at least catch up. I am going to okay, you see the September 1st minutes, everybody?
yep,
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna do, since we have a little bit of time, and they're short, we'll just do this sort of editing by reading here. People don't mind. So please start chiming in with little verbal cues that I can move on.
looks okay to me.
yep.
yeah, I don't see any edits in that first section.
Okay. Heard from enough people that I'm moving on here.
The 25 to 27 North Main Street one, that was the same one that just was approved just now. I didn't remember if that was future tense or past tense.
So where you go? Where are you referring to?
Administrative approvals, it said that Courtney would be acting as the agent. That had not happened yet at that point, at that
She was
time.
acted as the agent, but she hadn't approved it yet. We just did it tonight.
Got it, okay.
Correct. Scrolling down.
Yep.
I want to bring up a question for people. Maybe people know whether I need to check with the town clerk. When we have discussions that we pick up early in the meeting, and then we take on some other business, and then we pick it up like this tree policy discussion, I would prefer to just have it all in one place. I don't know if minutes have to have it in what might be chronological order, or we can just have a note saying that it was resumed later, but I would like to put them all in one place. Does anybody know whether there's a problem with doing that? Or disagree with doing that?
I don't think there is a problem with doing that,
Okay,
but it's probably best to confirm with the town clerk.
Deborah, why don't you just do a little inquiry to the town clerk's office just to say that we can, that whether our minutes have to be broken up like this versus just grouping all of those discussions in one place.
Sure,
And let me know.
okay. I can even show her the example so she knows
Okay.
exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Any comments on the screen?
Nope.
It's good.
Yes, that's it basically here. Oops. Oh. I move that we approve the minutes of September 1, 2020 as edited here.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I. Matt,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Kurt,
I'll abstain.
okay, and Jacob.
Aye.
Okay, we got a 501. Okay, we'll get the other minutes there, so we're not very far behind. And as I've said before, we are probably well ahead of most boards in town. Okay, so I'm just gonna save this. The share. Okay. Let's see, we have 3 minutes. Let's see, we got anything. Well, we can, yes, I guess we're gonna have a little gap. I could see that we don't have much left, and then we're gonna have a gap. Wow. Between 9:30 and 10. We're gonna have a,
Take a power nap.
what's that?
You could take a power nap.
Oh, okay, fine.
We could take, we sometimes have taken like a 5-minute break though.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll have there, and the question is whether we, well, maybe we could use it to, maybe talk a little about the tree policy, even if we're not fully prepared, but maybe go over a few questions there just to try to use the time. Since, trying to think of what other announcements there are of anything. I guess there is I'll make an announcement for people. A 40B has been filed. And I think everybody got the email that a 40B has been filed on the Greenwood side of the property, that's Greenwood and Washington Street. And that, it looks like it's being broken up in that lot that we did, that we're gonna look at later for the ANRAD, for the delineation. That is being broken up into 2 separate possible 40B projects. Along the Greenwood side will be 4 homes on separate lots that will be essentially one of them will be an affordable housing home. And that way it's a 40B project, and I guess they're asking for a number of waivers in the town zoning, since it'll be about 0.9 acre lots. which I don't know if that area is 2 acre, 1 acre, 2 or 3, which is the standards around town in most places. I'm not sure what that area is, but it's going to be below that. But as a 40B, they can request waivers for that. And there are no wetlands, I think, in those, as when we look at the delineation. But there is a site visit to it. So that's a process that we will get. I guess if there are, is it even in the buffer zone choice, any of those?
I don't think there was any work proposed in the buffer zone
So none of the houses are in the buffer zone. So
or the septic or wells.
I'm just wondering whether that is basically like an administrative approval, that they don't even have to file an NOI.
Right.
Wow, I hadn't thought about the fact that. There is a site visit to the site on October 17th that we can go to. I don't know if we sent that out to everybody. Often,
What date was that? I'm sorry.
it's Monday, October 17th at 11 o'clock.
Isn't it too early to know whether there would be any work in the buffer zone? Because they haven't done the soil testing, so I don't know, how would they know where the septic fields would go?
This isn't this, Michael, isn't this their conceptual plan to mass housing? For,
I guess we don't know, so we don't know. It
we don't
goes,
know all the details yet.
I guess we don't know for sure. We'll find out.
Michael, are you noticing that Bill Claff has?
Yeah, he is looking, I will do that before I go. Okay, Bill, you can make a comment if it's quick, because we're over the deadline. We can continue talking about this.
I'm just curious, I'm looking at a PDF here and I'm seeing a 100-foot wetland buffer that cuts through the 40B analysis PDF.
Okay, then it is there, so they'll have to do something. Okay.
And
Whatever
FYI,
they-
it's 2 acres in that area.
The lot size?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I saw that each of the homes were gonna be 0.9 acres.
Yes, but the zone is 2.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean, right. Although that's irrelevant for us. Okay, it's 8:45. I am now opening up a request for tourist Equibility for 78 Harrington Ridge Road. For proposed tree removal in a buffer zone for Sabrina Howell. I don't know if Sabrina's here.
I don't believe she is, so I'm going to run through this. This is a request for determination of applicability to remove trees at 78 Harrington Ridge Road. We have a history with this property. Originally, this homeowner was given approval under an emergency order to remove approximately 19 dangerous trees. That might have been 2 years ago, but it was during COVID, and they couldn't get someone to remove the trees, and therefore the emergency order expired. We issued a second emergency order, and she had the same issues. Again, these are only good for a month. And so by the time she came back to us, we had just been advised not to do any more emergency orders. If you let me share my screen, Michael, I've also
Okay.
brought up a mass mapper. So this is 78 Harrington Ridge Road right here. And the wetlands, this is what the show, the wetlands do something like this around the property. And the trees she's looking to remove kind of run like this. So some of the trees are outside the 100, some of them are within so the trees are looped like this. And I believe the wetland line comes somewhere around through here. This is the sketch that they presented, and it's pretty accurate. She had originally worked with Allery to kind of identify the trees that would be coming down. This is the street here, and this is running around the property. And I will say to you that I felt a little uncomfortable walking around back here because these trees are really dead. And they lean, all of the ones that these are identified are leaning over the lawn. Some of them are actually maybe 4 or 5 feet into the lawn. And I truly did not want to walk around to take too much of a look at it because they just have very tall, dead, it's clearly dead branches that are hanging out through here. This tree here is a, I don't believe it's close as to whether or not this tree here is in the buffer zone, but they did get a determination from Stumpy's. And she also included pictures, which I'll just kind of scroll through. You can see even just from these horrible pictures that, you know, this was during the summer and these are dead. So, you know, she clearly documented all the trees. She took her time and did that. And then I think at the end there's a Stumpy's letter with respect to that one tree, that the maple that's sitting right next to the driveway. And you can see that it's got some issues. So they're looking to take that tree down. Because of the way the trees are all leaning, the stems of the tree, I looked to see which ones would be good candidates for snags, and I'm concerned about leaving. I would say they shouldn't be, except for the ones that are this one here. You know, not to remove stumps, which wasn't their intention. This one will probably be ground down because it's right in the front yard, but there weren't really good candidates for snags because again they were all leaning towards the lawn and house. But these were ones that she had been given permission to remove twice, but because of timing it didn't work out.
Does she just want to go down to the ground, or is there any stump removal, or what's the?
No stump. Again, she didn't specifically say. I believe this one in the front yard will need to be ground down because it's right next to the driveway. The rest of these, they can just be maybe not tall, but maybe just a 2 foot stump.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about, right, if they're not trying to remove the stump, you don't have that kind of soil disturbance, so that you might get any kind of erosion and stuff. So essentially, if we apply, and Jacob and Matt, if they've looked at the policy more recently, our draft work on the policy, what would we do in this case?
Well, I think in this case, this is one where we'd have to be looking at the conditions on the site and saying, does it make sense? Because I think as we've talked about so far, we've said things like anything that's try and leave snags as much as, or just, I don't think we talked about what conditions for when to leave a snag versus not. But if these are all leaning toward if these are all sort of defining the forest edge and are leaning in, as they tend to do after they've been there for a while, I don't know that they're good candidates for that.
So, but in the bigger picture, we would just be saying, even though there's many more trees than we would normally then allow, that basically all these trees we should just permit all of these trees to be cut, possibly to the ground without stump removal, and no mitigation. Is that where we would end up with the way the policy goes?
I think that's where we would end up with what we want the policy to say.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I think
That's
the path there might be a little bit winding. The path might be something of the form, here's the default, and then look at what's actually there and look at what the existing canopy cover is and see if it makes sense. And here we'd land on, no, it doesn't make sense to either leave snags or to require mitigation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions or comments about this? Whether this is fairly straightforward? in terms of anything?
It seems that way. I mean, the only one tree where, because I mean, most of these are clearly dead or pretty far gone, so that they really aren't providing a lot of shading. But I think in Stumpy's letter, at least for that maple, it had some defects, but it wasn't, it was still all leafed out and stuff. You know, like that would be, you know, if we went with our tree plan, I guess it would come down to whether we would ask for any trees to be planted for, you know, cases such as this one.
So really, it's only the last tree, number 19.
So is
Otherwise-
number 19 in the lawn or is it at the forest edge?
No, number 19 is in the lawn. Well, it's
That's the one by the driveway?
yeah, it's the one by the
Could that be turned into a snag, Joyce? Is that an appropriate tree for a snag?
it overhangs the driveway, so I wouldn't do that. No.
Mm.
So really, this is their front lawn, and
Mhm.
the maple is really sitting right here, and then the driveway comes in here.
Backyard.
No, this is the street right here.
And this is it's in the middle of lawn, and that's the one that's even on the questionable whether it's actually in the buffer
Right.
zone.
I
Okay,
would
right.
probably not ask for, I certainly wouldn't want a replacement tree in the same spot. And since it's questionable whether it's in jurisdiction or not, I'm okay with not asking for a tree to be planted.
Okay.
I mean, to me, it does look like some of these dead trees look like they really could fall over, you know.
I
They
had a tree fall today in
Hmm.
the woods by my house.
Yeah,
I don't see- they're not providing any canopy, right? They're all
Yeah.
dead. So, except for this one in the lawn there, and it's already outside of the buffer zone. I mean, it's outside of the sort of nice contiguous buffer zone as opposed to.
Right.
So I'm not concerned there. I guess I would, yeah, my sense is to let it, that this would be fine to permit all of it without any mitigation. And that sort of fits with the way our policy has been going, the draft of it.
are they in a natural area, Joyce, where other trees would just come up? Like at the edge of my lawn, I'm always getting oak saplings and this and that if I'm not mowing.
It's already starting now because these trees have been dead for a while.
Yeah, it already is there. They're not adding any canopy, right? Okay. Then let's see, do we have, this is an RDA. Do we have any conditioning that we need? Other than about equipment or something, or?
Yeah,
Like a
I
video
did,
of the crane.
yeah, I did some standard conditions that we typically put in for tree removal. Wait a minute. Woody debris can be spread within the buffer zone, but there should not be wood stacked from tree cutting within jurisdiction. All areas will be restored in kind. No equipment is to operate outside of altered areas, that's lawn and driveway. And there'll be no construction equipment stored or fueled within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Joyce, separately from this, can you send me a copy of those standard items? Because we probably want to put those in the tree policy itself.
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, I have a question about the woody debris issue. When we talked about it at one other NOI recently, we were differentiating between all the slash or forest slashes they normally call all the branches and stuff like that, which can be a lot. Oh, in this case, there's not a lot of slash.
I mean, usually like if you have stumpies come out, they usually chip all of that on site, like into their truck and
Into their
take it
truck.
away.
Well, I know what they usually do. I'm just a matter of what we're permitting them to do. If they decide to, I mean, one could argue, we did like what we did with the Maple Street. Is that we actually said that they can leave some of the trunks. Not the branches, not all the forest, the slash, all that sort of smaller branches, because that tends to create maybe an area for invasives. And it just sort of, and especially in an unaltered area, it's not so good. The question is whether we want to have, whether we want to permit some of the trunk there, because right now your woody debris can be spread in the buffer zone. I'm not sure I agree. We'd either have to tighten that up. It should be, no, I guess you're missing wording in the draft that you have there. There should be no wood stacked from the tree cutting. And the word no is missing.
Right, I saw that, yeah.
Question is from a, right, from an environmental point of view, we actually don't mind some of that dead wood, like the dead trunks being left there. This is just a lot. I guess we always try to balance between, obviously when a tree falls down there and disturbs things. I'm always struggling with how much we should let them leave any trunks in the buffer zone. I don't want them to have, I guess what's the terminology? We call it tree trunks versus slash and branches. That,
I believe this conditions, the woody debris conditions came up with one of our first, where people actually wanted to leave, they were cutting the trees themselves.
Yeah,
They actually wanted to leave the debris, and they
right.
could leave the debris if they scattered it throughout the
Yeah.
buffer zone.
Right.
I can just change that the condition to say no woody debris, no woody debris, or anything can be spread within the buffer zone.
no, in this case, it's all dead wood, right?
I don't think we want anyone spreading anything or shooting chips into the woods. And, you know, I agree, maybe there's a case to be made for putting down some logs, some tree trunk parts, but you know, unless the owner wants to do that.
Yeah, I guess.
I
we
don't know that we're gonna hash that out tonight fully.
Well, no, I think I actually, since we do have some time,
So no, the
I
owner
would
did not
actually like
ask
to do that.
this again, this was a condition. So cutting up woody debris and spreading it out throughout the area is a common practice when you're maintaining a woodlot. But again, this came up from someone who maybe 2 years ago, who was doing the work themselves and didn't want to be able to have to take all the stuff off site. So again, we can put this condition in there, and if it becomes unbearable to the homeowner, they can come back and ask for alternatives.
Oh,
I think that leaving the stacked logs there is more damaging than, but that's my opinion, you know.
no, that's what we're gonna talk. I think it's worth, since we have some time now and we have to get this policy moving ahead, even if we don't.
But see, I wasn't envisioning like a stack of logs. I was envisioning like, you know, like a down tree trunk, like you would come across in the wood, you know? If they
That's what
wanted
we
to
did.
lay a few of them down.
That's what we did on Maple Street. We said you could leave 2 or 3 trees just downed. They had a number they were taking down, like 15, but or I think it was 11, but we left some of them just to go down. Yeah, I struggle with how does if it's a natural buffer zone, to what extent? I mean, I get problems when my trees fall in the wetlands here. Right, sometimes it does muck up what's a nice buffer zone, but it is what it is. That's just the nature of change in the forest. But as a policy, whether I guess this is a case, I think, a little I think Jacob mentioned at one point when I was talking separately of what the site conditions are like. Like if you looked at the buffer zone there, and it was nicely vegetated with an understory and an herbaceous layer, that putting a bunch of logs around or debris would disturb what is a fairly nice setup is fine. If it's basically what we had in the Maple Street, where you had very little understory, whether that's due to deer or just the density of the canopy, that having some logs or tree trunks uncut, just sort of felled and left there, was not disturbing the habitat there, and wasn't creating a place for invasives. Whether in the policy we have to have that kind of like a guideline for the agent to basically make a decision as to whether let's keep two categories. We can call it.
Is this a place where we just want to have the homeowner specify what they're going to do with it, and then we look at it and say, is this going to be reasonable or not?
Right. But for our own guidance to the agent, whether we want to, if we think of two categories, I don't know what you want to call it, woody debris or forest / some term for all the branches and whatnot, and a separate term for basically the trunks. We think of break them up into two categories, whether we want to have in our policy the guidance to the agent that if there's if the understory of shrubs and herbaceous layer are robust, then maybe we don't have either of them in there. If there is a fairly sparse understory, then that some trunks and possibly some slash could be left there, and that's at the discretion of the agent. So that to see whether it would contribute to a good buffer zone and habitat. I mean, it's basically want a buffer zone that's not disturbed so much for infiltration and all that kind of stuff, as well as for habitat. In this case, do you have a sense of what that buffer zone looks like around those trees?
Around the majority of them, it's right next to the property line, so there really isn't any good opportunity for spreading anything. As you get towards the back of the property, it's pretty heavily shrubbed, so I don't know that I would want to necessarily spread anything out. It would be a lot of work.
Okay, so in this case, given these principles of how to maintain a good buffer zone, you would say that that there's no spreading of slash or trunks would be appropriate for this particular site.
Okay.
No, I'm asking you as a
So
question.
I think that that would work. I
Okay,
think that-
that's not a good site for doing this. Okay,
No, and as Courtney pointed out, Stumpy's is going to come in and they're going to just take everything off the site. So
well, you can tell them to leave stuff behind. I mean, I've done that when I had them here. So I mean, you can obviously give the homeowner a choice. I mean, as Jacob said, I agree. The homeowner wants it all taken away, we're not going to force them to leave it behind, even if it's a good place. I mean, from a climate change point of view, actually not chipping it is better off. It takes longer to release the carbon if it's just left there versus being chipped. But that's a fairly small issue. So in this case, we're going to condition, so we'll change the tree removal, that the tree will be removed, that there's no spreading of stuff in the buffer zone, because it's not a good place for this. Disturb areas of restorated, no equipment. Okay, then we've changed that condition there. So to close this thing, I move that for the determination equability of a -3 with the conditions discussed. Now we just went over about the no spreading of debris there and the equipment and any restoration of disturbed areas in the buffer zone. And no, I guess we're having no stump grinding. 'Cause, well, how do we want to term it? Actually, there's another thing for the policy. When we say tree cutting, it's to a stump. That there's three letters to say again in our policy. We have stump grinding, where people go below the surface and try to remove a lot of it. Then there's just leaving a stump, which could be level with the ground, and then there's a snag. In this case, they can cut it to ground, but in the buffer zone, we tend to not want to have stump grinding, because that basically can lead to some sort of erosion and other kind of stuff in the buffer zone. So basically, we say the tree can be removed to a stump. And we're not, and snags, we can permit snags if they want, but I doubt that they'll do that. Okay, so in my motion, coming back, there's no spreading of debris of slash or trees. Trees will be cut to the stump. Snags are permitted if they want. That's the end of my motion.
The one tree in the front can be ground.
Oh. Yeah, I
Oh,
guess
the
it's in the
one
middle of
next to the
one. I
driveway,
don't have a problem
yeah.
with it being ground if they want it, if wanted.
What
What?
we talked about last time was saying in lawn areas, grinding stumps is okay, but pulling stumps or other kind of removals not.
Okay, so that fits with what we're saying, what we've done. Okay, good. Okay. A friendly amendment to the motion.
I think we lawn or landscaped areas or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
right.
but
Okay, so we're okay, that's good. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I, Jacob,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Carol,
I,
Courtney,
Aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Okay. So it's now 9:59, whoops. Okay, let's do what's that? Certificate of compliance?
Yes. I'm going to share my screen again. Are you able to see that picture?
Mm-hmm.
So this is 116 Farm. For those of you who are new, this is the same site we just did an order of conditions on for work in the unauthorized work in the buffer zone where we had some plantings. Last year they came before us they had an eroding bank down by Farm Pond. Their property goes all the way down to Farm Pond. And so they requested permission to put in a stone retaining wall and put down stones for along the beach area. This was previously similar gravel as it is here. There was a dock out in the area here that they had put sections here, and then let's see how this picture thing works here. So this is the pictures are gonna jump around because for some reason I couldn't get them all to work. This is because the water's low, I was able to stand out in the water. If you remember last year, it was all the way up to here. So standing here, this is what it looks like from the side. They did put one stone, if you recall, we talked about one step. So you can come down off the wall and step and get down into the water. This is just from another angle. The shed is still here. They put two pieces of that dock that was out in this area. I have a comment that I'm going to wait to see if you all recognize the issue that I have with this. And then before I say that, but this is I'm going to try see if I can get So this is the shed. And then they put like 2 dock pieces here. So they basically took the dock out and then left, this is the original shed. They were going to raise the shed and redo the shed, but they did not do that. And then I did a quick walk down the trail. Behind us here is where all the work was. This is where all the access came from, and it looks fine. They did a great job of not disturbing access to this project.
Mhm.
So I thought we had a long conversation about not having pea stone falling into the pond.
You are correct.
You
That
get
was
the
my
gold star.
recollection. That was my recollection. And I thought we were very clear. But all the plans said specifically, no pea stone. I even spoke to the person who was doing the work and said, no pea stone. I mean, they had to go out of their way to bring pea stone. So I don't know. I can say that at this very moment in time, I don't see any pea stone in the lake, but I don't know what to say. I'm leaving that to you all. I'm just presenting you the facts.
I mean, looking at the pictures, it doesn't even look like there's a hard edge to hold the pea stone back. It looks like it wants to just sag into, and I don't know if that's the angle of the picture.
No, that's part of the angle. So there is a row here that kind of holds things back, but maybe this rock sits up a little bit, but so that it is holding things back, but it's not a we talked about having like a defined, like you just talked about it,
A lip, yeah.
yeah. So it's very nicely stabilized. I will say that. It's about the height that we talked about is the same. They started from one end of it and then went to the other end, and that's very nicely stabilized. And they kept the size to what we had spoken of. I think I'm not even worried. I'm not even concerned about the lip, because really they've limited access by doing this to really just come in. You can't just leap, I guess, unless the water's there. You don't really walk over the rocks here. You really you're really forced to come down to where that step is. Maybe they're all younger and more spry than I am, but really it's not. I wasn't particularly worried about the lip part of it, but the pea stone kind of bothers me.
Yeah, I agree.
How long ago was this done? Was this done this year or last year?
It was
Or
done
two?
this year. It was they did it this year.
Joyce, do you think that the pea stone could be removed? Like, is it just a layer of a couple inches that could maybe be removed, or would that actually end up making a worse situation?
Well, I don't know how far down they have to. I don't know. I think the stones were set on top of the original grade, and the pea stone was probably used to stabilize things between the stones. If you recall, during our conversations, we had talked about that they would have to find the material, whether they set the rocks into the dirt that was there and then filled with the dirt around it. But obviously, they went to the pea stone for stabilization. So I don't know. I would say there's at least a couple of inches, because those rocks have some depth to them. And I'm pretty certain those rocks are sitting on the original ground. I don't think they excavated that area down to get to that height.
Joyce, can you go back to the lake view where you're standing in what used to be water?
So there is, if you see that, I didn't note that then, but there's, it's a pea stone here. And
Mhm.
that this is coming down that step.
Yeah.
Would it be better if it were something like sand? I mean, maybe they can remove, a few inches down and replace with sand.
So what they were supposed to do is when they put these boulders up, they were putting fabric behind the wall. So that if they used sand, Carol, to backfill, it wouldn't be able to get through the stone. And now I don't know that sand would be, I think we just end up with sand down on the beach. I think that would wash down also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would be a right, I remember there's supposed to be some fabric to hold everything back.
Now that might be there, and maybe they've
Yeah.
just done a really good job of piecing things together, and we just don't see it. That's all.
Right, I mean, it's a little like the problem at Farm Pond at the boat ramp where they sort of didn't do it right either, and then basically ended up with a sort of sandy and somewhat better pond edge became all graveled because stuff just kept running into it. I mean, at a bigger scale than this. I don't know what's a possible. Yeah, I don't feel like approving this at this point.
Yeah, I'm very uncomfortable approving this. I don't know that I want them to like blow it all up, but I don't know what the solution is at the moment.
Is the concern that pea stone moves and it's gonna fall down and then destabilize the things that it's in between, or is the concern pea stone getting into the pond?
So next door, this same person the same contractor had repaired the wall next door and did a magnificent job with the stone and everything, but then put this pea stone all over the top of it. But that was several years ago. And when you look into the pond now, you see a whole lot of pea stone because over time that pea stone just travels from whether it's through, we haven't gone through winter, whether the ice and snow brings the stone down or walking or activity, it just ended up with a lot of stone hanging out there. So that's where we made our comments that, this was, he did a great job over here, but over here, don't use pea stone. And it wasn't just like a random comment. It was, I thought it was pretty clear.
Right. Generally, you did want to try to keep that sort of natural pond edge. And that filling it with stone is not, I mean, it's not a big linear footage of it, but it's that sort of, you try to defend it wherever you can. Because it's developments going up around the pond everywhere. That's changing the pond's edge. So I guess, I don't know what is so whether the order of conditions had that they were going to put in basically some sort of packed dirt or compressed dirt around there. That and somehow between fabric and some sort of edge would prevent it from eroding into the pond. Since you don't want erosion into the pond is a big deal. That's what we're even struggling with at the beach area. So
well, we can always just send them a note or a letter or whatever and just say, you need to explore your options because we said, no pea stone.
right, and we don't want any, and we want to see a setup that's not going to erode into the pond over time. As you can see now, there's not a lot of gravel and other kind of stuff around the edge of the pond. I mean, they did a great job in terms of everything else compared to what was there. Yeah, even just around the step, just one stone up from the step. I can't tell whether this looks like there's also keystone there too, that,
Yeah, when I walked up and down this a couple times, and honestly, I don't remember, obviously it's there, but I don't remember it. I don't remember that, but
hmm.
it's there.
So,
So I guess I'll ask the commission, shall I go back and say to them, you know, this was the one element we asked you not to put down, you know, what are you gonna do about it?
right, or what alternative, or how they gonna, I mean, right, I don't know if we could. Right, what intervention they could do to keep the pea stone and make sure that it's not gonna go into the pond. I'm not sure what in the world that could be.
I think that's a good plan. Joyce, if you go to the other picture, it's like the other angle from in the pond. And I like zoomed in and it's like, you can already see how the pea stone is gonna like spill over the boulder.
Yeah, you know,
Whatever,
Right,
okay,
I have it if you want me to share it.
it's all right. So we're gonna send them a letter saying that we've got to
Yeah, if
figure
you
out
zoom in
something.
on that. Like, I mean, look at the pea stone spilling over the boulders there. It's not, that's gonna fall in.
So it's not
A
so
little
bad.
better in some areas.
Yeah, it's better down there, but on this end, it's
Yeah,
kind of sketchy.
okay.
Okay,
It's a plan.
so we'll send them a letter. I don't know whether,
So
if Steve, you want to comment from your farm pond advisory days, whether you have any say or ideas about this, I'll, not to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious if you're even there.
Don't put people on the spot at 9:30.
No, it's fine. Let me put my video on here.
It's all right. We're all on the spot. I'm on the spot for hours here. I don't mind putting other people on the spot. Yeah,
Well, Farm Pond Advisory Committee, we were really concerned about nutrients getting into the pond, especially phosphates. So that was a huge concern. Frank, the pea stone I don't see as a concern from that point of view. It's surprisingly close to the pond because the pond's pretty low, I assume, when those pictures are being taken. So that's really close to the pond edge. In the spring, that's got to be
right.
that all the way up to the. So personally, I'm not concerned about the pea stone in terms of harming the pond. It does seem really close to the pond edge.
Okay. So if everybody, and any on the commission have any other issues besides any problems with us sending out the letter that we've talked about and seeing if we can find some compromise or solution. Okay. I'm not going to take a vote. We're just going to send a letter out and see what we can work out and then bring it up in the future, depending on what they come back with or whether we work out something. Cause yeah, right, who knows what will happen over time as to the amount of pea stone, but whether it just accumulates over time, but I guess it's not a good practice to start, as from my point of view, whether I'm being more conservative than some. Okey doke. Then we have 1 minute to our next at 9:30. Okay, this is going to be, I understand, right, we're going to have we got approval to continue the next hearing?
Duchesne is here in the audience. I got a verbal agreement from him earlier. He can speak to this himself. So just to keep the commission informed, this is 26 Western Avenue is a abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, a walk to review the wetland line. It's also one that we had previously looked at for soil testing. And Duchesne and I were scheduled to walk this site on last Friday, and I came down with COVID, so and was in no shape to do anything. So I have not been able to walk that to report for tonight's meeting. So as soon as I can get back out there in the next week or so, we'll walk that line and confirm it.
Okay. It's 9:30. I'm gonna open up this continued hearing for the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 26 Western Ave to review the resource area delineation fund with Creative Land and Water Engineering LLC representing Eduardo Rosa. I see that DeShang is here. So DeShang, we're okay with continuing this hearing until next time. And you guys will walk between.
Yes.
Okay. Well, who else is here? Did I hear that from?
DeShang, are you on somebody else's iPad?
Yeah, I'm in DC and I'm using my wife's.
Okay,
Oh,
fine.
you were in disguise.
But Francis is there too, but I just sort of given a try. So if there's anything, so I happen to be late and we both can get on because we don't know which one can get it on because I'm traveling. But since it's late, so I used.
Okay, so Francis is the claw.
Right, right.
I was staring at the claw and then I heard the
Yeah,
voice.
the voice came from somewhere.
It's someone like in a female pronounced like a male.
Okay, fine, then we will continue this to, do we have a schedule for any issues on?
We do have a schedule started. We have a request for determination of applicability on at 7:30. That probably is I would say 20 minutes, based on what we've been doing tonight. That would be 20 minutes.
So that's the only thing we have there besides
That's all
maybe,
that we have so far. I think Deborah talked to Kelly, and I think he would like some time on the next agenda. But I don't know, she was gonna ask him how much time, because we only have 15 minutes before 7:30.
okay, well, we could always bring him on a little,
Okay, he came on, he asked the question after we'd already assigned a time.
right,
Kelly did say he would need about 20 minutes.
okay. We did the other thing, if we put him on at 7, he likes to do it a little earlier. If we did him at 7:50, 20 minutes, 8:10. Do you want to just move this to 8:15?
Okay,
Could fill in some other stuff. Is that gonna work for you, DeShang?
Yeah, it should be
8:15 on the
fine.
20th?
So
Okay,
you said that's 8:10, Michael?
oh, I was gonna just round it off to 8:15, but I guess we can, I guess we can do 8:10, keep it tighter. 8:10, so I move that we continue this hearing for the ANRAD on 26 Western Ave to 8:10 on October 20th. Do I have a second?
Second, 8:10 p.m.
8:10 p.m., yes, thank you for that. A friendly amendment. Okay. Okey doke. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Jacob,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Michael, I, and Carol.
Aye.
Okay, moving it to then. So we have our next hearing, we're making through this list here. It looks like it's gonna be at 10 o'clock. And the only thing to do is whether we go through some more raw minutes, or we could take a little bit of a break if people would like to take a I guess we see other people here in the I'll just sort of do a little check of the guests that we have here. Is everybody here sort of Tom, Robert, Katie. I assume you're all here for the, or anybody else who's here for something other than the delineation work for 0 Washington Street and 108 Coolidge. Is anybody here for something else besides that? Okay. That will take place at 10 and then 10:30. And okay, so we could, do we want to take a 5-minute break or so, and then we could talk a little bit about tree stuff for a little bit to see whether there's some outstanding issues that could help us move along on that. Okay, why don't we, what do we need, 10 minutes? Does that sound good for people?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll reconvene at 9:45. Okay, it's 9:45. Anybody's still around? Ready to start again? Okay, so at 10 o'clock, we will have the first of 2 resource delineation area work, 108 Coolidge and then 0 Washington. But until then, I want to come back to whether the tree removal policy, and I can almost open it up whether you, Jacob, or Matt, I don't know if you got to look at it, Matt, to have any things that are worth getting some commission views on some issues.
We should talk about the size of replacement trees and shrubs, because there were some edits there that I think, I'm not sure we'll all agree on. We should talk about that. And Matt, were there other areas that you wanted to go over? Or did we need to sort of do a cleanup pass on the draft first?
Yeah, I to be honest with you, my day got away from me today, and I just want to read the whole thing in total. What I'd really like to do is figure out where we stand with the thing in terms of a current draft, accept all the red lines that we currently have, and then give it a read through to the extent that that's doable.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that to your question that we don't have a draft, there wasn't a full draft of everything. There was that sort of general policy statement that you got, that's a few pages that has a lot of the substantive issues. And then there's the question of having a form and whether we have an FAQ or stuff like that, which is parallel in the Lincoln format. And the question is whether that main document of a handful of pages with all the redlining should have most of the substance in there about what the agent can't do, what are the parameters, like standard conditions. I don't know whether there are a list of standard conditions that you can get from Joyce, or whether we have to make up a list of stuff that that the agent could just check off on, or whatever. I think tonight we can go. I mean, I think we got through a few things when we just dealt with that other Harrington Ridge tree thing, and that we went through a number of things that you can incorporate. But coming back to the mitigation trees, if we have them right now, I think we only have mitigation if there are live trees that need to get cut down. And then it's an issue of I guess we're going to give some discretion based on the canopy. I think that the agent would have the power to say if there's not a great loss of canopy, then there could be a choice between trees and shrubs. If there's some significant loss of canopy, then we want to get some trees started there. And the question, what you were asking about size of tree, like whether we're doing 2-inch, 3-inch.
Well, So 2 and 3 inch trees are huge, at least for deciduous trees. They don't fit in containers. That's big enough that I think you need forklifts or skid steers to move them around. And I'm not sure that's what we want. That'd be fine in a lawn area or something, but I don't think that's what we want in a buffer zone, natural area, anything like that.
A 2-inch tree, is that big? I thought they were like 6 to 2-inch tree.
Diameter. So it's a lot bigger than a 1 inch diameter tree. They're hundreds of pounds.
Hmm.
Conifers are get the trunks seem to get thicker much faster. So I think that's a different story. But I don't think we want to encourage people towards conifers. We want to get the same sorts of shade from those.
Because we've generally had 2-inch trees.
So I think in a lot of the mitigation things where you're removing something, you're removing a healthy tree from the middle of a lawn for like doing a septic system, that makes sense to get
Yeah,
a
but
big
they're still being put. They're still being put in a buffer.
Yeah, we're talking about a tree that's already damaged and and a lot of, at least in the examples we've been looking at, a lot of them start in the forest edge. I don't think we want to be introducing large disturbances there.
Good point. What do nurseries do have?
So it's a little bit, if you go to the nurseries that tend to have only native plants, they're on the small side. So it's actually hard to find 1-inch deciduous trees anyway. They tend to be in 7-gallon pots, 5-gallon pots, things like that. If you go to the big nurseries that do sort of all varieties, like that specialize in will come plant this giant tree for you, then they have the much larger ones that are all the burlap sack wrapped things.
I mean, I guess if we have some smaller ones, I guess we can get 2 trees or something and then hope that they would do well. There's nurseries in Essex.
So for example, if you pull up the list of Garden in the Woods and go through the list of trees that they have, they're all much smaller than anything we've been talking about. They're also out of stock this time of year, but if you look at sort of what things they offer generally, they're all much smaller than everything we've been talking about here.
What? Okay.
I can I can find that link if you want. Let's see.
I don't know. Is anybody?
Yeah, I'm doing a little Googling. It looks like a 2-inch caliber tree is like maybe 8 feet tall, but it depends obviously on the species, which doesn't seem hugely tall, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I went and measured it, but I went to a couple of the nurseries around and just measured what they have.
Oh, okay.
I agree that if you go to the Garden in the Woods, the native trees they have are definitely much smaller than 2-inch caliper, and they're not in huge pots.
Let's see.
There's also New England wetland plants out of Amherst. But like Jacob said, it's hit or miss as to what you can find now for variety.
Well, the thing about New England wetland plants also I noticed is that even compared, they don't grow them on, like even the Garden in the Woods grows them on a little farther than New England wetland plants. What you get at New England wetland plants is even smaller.
You can get larger stock. It's just you have to go there first of all. And to Amherst, they don't deliver.
Yeah,
and you have to really work it with them.
Yep.
So
what do you have? You could have posted, because I look at, and I'm just looking at some random site. They have a number 3 container for a red maple and a number 5 container.
Yeah, those are all tiny. I mean, that's a 3-gallon, 5-gallon.
Oh, okay. So they are tiny, those things. Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't tell with me.
Those are size of a little shrub. which is not, I think that actually makes sense if you have like a buffer zone that is vegetated and we want to keep the stuff around it. It just doesn't have any trees. Because I don't think we want to disturb much else.
I mean, I agree that we want to watch out for disturbing a lot. That a 5-gallon,
I mean, so some of the questions are, is our goal to get something that's going to be much larger and produce shade quicker? Is that our goal? Or is our goal to just make sure we don't end up with an area that has no trees at all?
I would say in the case of the canopy loss, that we do want to get something quicker. Even though if you're taking down a live, because we're only talking about when you're taking down a live tree that might be giving canopy. And so we do want to accelerate the canopy. That's why I was thinking it would be a little bit larger, but I do want to be practical about what's reasonable. What were you thinking as if we're trying to get canopy, or what? I don't know how large, what do you do after 5? Number 5 just seems like 5-gallon isn't a very large container.
So some of the other nurseries will have 7-gallon and 15-gallon containers. So for example, Russell's in Wayland, they have like a whole native plant section, but they didn't really have any trees larger than 7 gallons. If you went to Weston Nurseries in Hopkinton, they didn't really have a native plant section, so you had to go look at each one and sort of figure out what it was and figure out if it would be native or not. They had everything up to the big giant sort of 2 or 3 inch categories, but those were a lot of those were 15 feet tall.
How big's a 15-gallon?
It's very dependent on the species. So some of those were as small as 1 inch diameter. Some of them are 1.5 inch diameter, but that's actually a big difference. For they can be 6 feet tall easily by that point. But it's very dependent on species and age of tree in that category. So I think what I'd recommend is not straying too far away from the Lincoln recommendations. We could say either a 15-gallon pot or a 1 inch diameter, which is Lincoln just says 1 inch diameter. They don't have anything other than that.
So you think, and a 15-gallon might be equivalent to 1 inch from what you saw. I'm trying to look at it.
I mean, it varies a lot, but there are certainly examples where it's about equivalent.
I guess we can use that. Why don't we just start with that? I don't know what other people think, since we're going to have to end in a couple of minutes.
And that's small enough to move around in a wheelbarrow, I think.
What size are you thinking then?
That's a 15-gallon container. I think that's movable with a wheelbarrow.
Yeah, I'm doing some quick searching and finding more than one article. I put one in the chat that smaller trees actually take off and end up growing larger because they settle in with their root systems better, which I definitely have noticed in my own yard. So I think that this is really sensible, especially with the climate change and everything. A bigger tree takes a lot of care and watering, and a smaller tree may really take off faster after a couple of years of getting its roots in.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. I'll just say, put in the draft. Let's start with the draft of about a 1 inch or a 15-gallon or number 15. And we can start from there. We could always reconsider. But just to get through something there. And then if we're doing the shrub choices where it's not a canopy stuff, maybe we have 5-gallon shrubs or something like that, or whatever, something there. How about that as something to start with and play with? We'll be revisiting.
Yeah, I'm reading in one of these articles, it's best to start with 1 to 1.5 inch trunk diameter, which does, that falls right into that range that.
Okay.
Talking about Jacob.
Okey doke. It's 10 o'clock. We've made some progress between the other discussion and this one here. Put it in the draft and keep going.
Okay.
We'll put it on the agenda next time. We could use it to fill in things. And see what you get out for us anyway before then. Okay. I am now reopening the hearing on the, oops. Let me get the agenda up here. Okay, I am reopening the continued hearing, the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 108 Coolidge Street for proposal to review the resource area delineation, Creative Land and Water Engineering LLC representing Robert Murchison. Okay, I'll let I guess Joyce, and I see here we have I guess Claw, and I don't know if Amy's still around.
Shane, did you want to share your screen or?
Yeah, do you have it? So Francis, could you share the plan?
All right, hold on a sec.
Yeah, why not? If Joyce, if it's handy for you, maybe you can go over and then we can
Or I can pull it up.
address any questions.
Joyce won the race.
I'm not sure that is that the revised one, Deshaun? What's the date on the revised?
Is that the revised? Did you have many revisions on that one?
No,
I see.
it was just.
I guess we got to get the right plan. What's the date of the last plan?
I'm looking.
I have 9/27.
Yeah, 9/27 is what I see.
Do you guys
Oh, yeah,
agree?
this is the revised one, yeah, okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Shane, did you want to go through this or how do you want to?
Yeah, this is this wetland is an isolated wetland. Joyce and I reviewed it, and so the only chance, so the soils over here is a Melmac sand, very permeable soils, and there was some farm ditch dug through the area of delineated, and but there's no really upstream or downstream wetlands. So we did Joyce did made some changes, connected B3 to B7 to including a small section of it into the wetland, and we agreed. So I think that's basically that. The rest of it, if you look at it, is the lines is the limit of lawn. The majority of the property are lawn and maintained. So soil is very sandy. So that's basically the condition.
Okay, so in the case of this is one of the few for everybody around, even on the commission. We very rarely end up doing these ANRADs as they're abbreviated, where it's just looking at the delineation. Usually that's part of it's just part of an NOI for the actual project, but in this case, they were just doing the delineation. So the only thing that we're approving as part of this hearing is that we're accepting the actual flags that are on a plan combined with the types of wetland that are listed here. Anything else about lawn or trees or this or that is not part of this hearing. It's literally the flags from the A series to 9, and then the B series with the correction from B3 to B7 to B11 is all we are approving as part of this hearing. So it's very, I guess it's much simpler than a lot of other project work that we get to do. So it's almost like we have to, as commissioners, we are relying on our agent or whoever, if we had a consultant or whatever else, to basically confirm each of these flags, which Joyce has done. And I guess the verification of how well they're listed on the plan, we always have to, I always wonder how we ever verify. I guess it's a question of Joyce even.
So
We ever verify that these plans actually, but the flags are in the field. Are we actually approving the plans and the flags in the field as they're really what we're approving, as opposed to what a plan?
That's a really good question. So, just to start with an abbreviated notice of area resource delineation, the applicant or Deshang, the consultant, submitted with his application his detailing of the, he did samples, soil samples out here, he presented his data sheets. And so when we went out into the field, we walked each flag. Deshang, I had him look at soils on each side of the line to confirm each point. And then we went around the whole limit. On Deshang's plan, because Deshang is not a land surveyor, Deshang is an engineer. He had some notes over to the side that talked about how, well, the question is that Deshang, as an engineer, can't certify the location of the wetland flags, but the applicant was able to provide to me the base survey upon which Deshang did his plan, where the land surveyor certified the location of the wetland flags, because he located them in the field. And so in our file, we also have the original plan that was done by their surveyor. And that could have been one of the previous ones that I had pulled up. So as far as knowing that knowing where the flags are, that's how, you see, I had him, this is from Semiotis Consultants, and they're the land surveyors. So they've stamped this sign, stamped this plan, certifying the location of the wetland flags. So basically certifying, if you look in through here, his notes talk about how this is a field, this is an actual survey on the ground. So we have a level of confidence as to where the flags are. That's the long answer to, that's how I know where the flags are in the right spot.
Okay, but I'm just trying to say whether that the flags in the field are really what we're going to be working from anyway. That we're approving the flags that are in the field.
Well, we're approving the flags that are on the ground, but you are also approving the plan that they're going to use as their base survey.
Mm-hmm. But to the extent that the plan is wrong, the flags in the field prevail. That's what I'd like to say.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
We can go clarify it, but I would like to put it in there that part of whatever we issue on this, since I haven't done one actually. Can't remember the last time ever. But I would like to say that have a line in whatever we write that the flags in the field prevail if there's any discrepancy between the plan and what's in the field. Since that's the only thing we can
Well,
absolutely verify without spending a lot of time and effort. That's beyond what we can really do. Let's see, so the one that you were showing, just trying to find that myself. So the Samiotis plan,
I did, yeah, I've gone back to the one that, the plan that upon which he's made the changes.
Made a reference to Semiota's plan. So remember that originally we were trying to do, we did an NOI and then appeal to DEP. Actually, DEP went to the site and did some soil verification themselves on another occasion for that soil testing plan.
Right, it was the same day, actually. The day we walked it with DEP for them to look at soil testing for this project is the same day Deshang and I walked the property.
okay, but the plan we're approving actually is not the one that is not this one.
It's this revised plan. Yes.
Well, the problem is that it has different flag numbers.
It doesn't have different flag numbers. It's just that we have eliminated flag numbers 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, I got you. So, okay,
So
fine.
he's identified this as the old line.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, fine. I'm now looking at the Semiotis plan separately.
Yeah, Semiota's just surveyed all the flags.
I got you. Now I understand.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we're approving that one together with the Semiotis one, to the extent that they are identical. Okay. Do other people on the commission have any questions about this? About what we're about to do here?
So when you vote to or not to approve this as a ORAD, an order of resource area delineation, what that does is for this particular flag and this particular resource area, it allows it to be approved for a period of 3 years.
Okay. Okay, so what we're approving in the letter that is drafted. Okay, it's recorded.
It does get recorded at the registry of deeds. You're looking at the ORAD that I put together.
Yeah, I'm putting it to Form 4B, that the letter, sorry, everybody, that this just going through the technicalities of this Form B, which we've never done, I've never done before. The findings.
Are you able to see, are you all able to see this Form B, 4B?
Yeah, I'm looking at it myself separately, but right, that's what we're approved, this is what we're gonna be signing.
So this is the part where we get down to the order of delineation. So the Conservation Commission has determined the following, check whichever is applicable. And I checked modified in that the plan that was originally submitted has been modified to reflect the changes that we made.
George, should be isolated wetlands rather than bordering.
Well, I can, but your plan calls it a bordering vegetative wetland.
Oh, all right. Sorry, we probably should modify that, right?
Hey, Michael, can you make that a little bigger by any chance?
That's not me.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
You said maybe.
There you go. Thank you.
So I guess we are approving a plan. and not just the flag issues.
Then there's a reason for approving the plan and not just the flags, because anybody can go out and move a flag. But a land surveyor, if they're certifying that this is the location of the flag, their license is on the line. But if a flag gets moved or the flags get lost, there's no way to go back and fix it. So you're relying on the plan. So the stone wall was out there. We saw the stone wall. Did I pull tapes between them all? I did look at that with respect to property lines and where and the shape it was in, but it was sort of done independently of the application. So I felt that there wasn't any bias as far as he's got to show the flags. The land surveyor has to show the flags where they are on the ground.
Okay, but you did some little rough checking that a flag or two is in the right place, just for our own due diligence.
Yes, and so, sorry, just going back to,
Okay,
so we referenced the plan, and the date of the plan.
So we can get if anything on the plan was like mistakenly stated as a bordering vegetated wetland. So I think we should correct that so to be accurate.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we should say other resource areas, but it's isolated wetland, vegetated wetlands.
where do we specify that this is only under the state versus the local bylaws not included in this?
Well, this doesn't, I have no reference here to the local bylaw. There's no reference on this document to the local bylaw.
Should we type it in? Usually, sometimes we type it in. Maybe we have to, if we just follow this, we can say under Sherborn Wetlands Protection Bylaw.
No, but it
No,
wasn't.
but it's not under the Sherborn.
It was not done. I want to be more explicit that it wasn't done.
Oh, yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, because this is 40B. Yeah.
I would actually like to put that in the cover letter if it's not somewhere on the form.
Yeah. It's just under the state. So
everybody should recognize for the rest of the commission, that's something I had come up with me and Joyce earlier, is that they did not file under the Sherborn Wetlands bylaw. Because the expectation is, I guess, that this is going to be done. That this project is going to be some sort of 40B like project that is not subject to the local regulations.
that's correct. Yeah.
Even though they can be factored in during the comprehensive. They're asking for waivers on the comprehensive permit. If they didn't get the waivers from for example, I guess there is, if under the unusual case, they didn't get a waiver from the Sherborn Wetlands bylaw during the comprehensive permit, then this would have to be redone in a way. But that's an unlikely situation. But yes, so this is done differently than almost most of all of our permitting stuff. Okay. So okay. All this stuff is useful to go through for the first time since this will help us with our next hearing, where at least these issues will have been somewhat the general principles of an ANRAD we have discussed. Okay, so in the actual Form B, 4B, we are approving
Go back to that last topic for a minute. I pulled up the ANRAD application and I don't see, it doesn't have the same sort of, is the applicant asking us under the town bylaws versus under the state bylaws that the
So the reason, so what the way you know that is because they didn't pay our fee. And they specifically stated.
They didn't pay.
So the difference is, are there differences between how we would review the wetland under the bylaw versus how we would review it if it were only under the Wetlands Protection Act? And if they choose to go forward in another fashion, perhaps there's some method and there really isn't here, some method of delineation that would be different. Your bylaw doesn't call out differences in how you delineate a wetland from how it's defined under the state Wetlands Protection Act. Some towns do.
Okay,
So
got it. Okay.
that's the only difference.
So we have the title of the, okay, so the plan that we have is the, okay,
So-
wetland resource plan. Do we need to put the name of the, I guess it's the applicant is Claw?
No,
Specify.
the applicant is Robert Murchison.
So just on the plan, whether it just not to be a little overly
Where are you now?
fussy, that plan specification
So it's
should
called,
should have,
okay, yeah, I will. So Desheng, are you going to revise this plan again? You have to, I mean, you need to revise the plan if you want me to change the form.
Yeah, because so the category of related, you say it's show, could you show on the plan? I don't recall, we labeled it as a bordering.
you could do
vegetated
call it
wetland.
bordering on the plan.
I wasn't
I'm
gonna,
looking at the plan now and you have bordering
I wasn't
vegetation.
gonna argue with you on it, Desheng, so. Bordering vegetated wetlands.
Yeah, we have to change in that word to be isolated.
That's delightful, but you have to do that.
It's just kind of this typing clause you could change. It's not going to change in the actual fracs.
So we're gonna get a new plan revision with a slightly different date.
That's just put in today's date on it. So we'll date just sort of. we
Okay,
don't have-
just put in the full name of the plan and that it's,
And I'll do my cloud engineering.
and I guess I'd like to say whether, I guess, do we have to put in reference to Samiota's plan?
No, this plan reference to semiotis, all right.
Or where is it? Oh, it does, where?
Right,
Yeah,
but
in the
Desheng,
note.
again, as a PE, he can't certify locations, so. I put it in our plan file so that we have documentation of it. I wouldn't want to add it to this because it might cause confusion.
Oh, yeah, no, I see in the general notes, it has Samiota's plan of January 28th. But that's not the same date. You're gonna have to revise that.
No, because they don't show, so Michael, again, what I tried to do is get documentation of the base. We have written between Desheng's note, the notes I sent out to Desheng about connecting those flags or eliminating those flags. That's not going to show up on the Semiotis plan.
No,
It's
I'm not
gonna
worried. I'm not expecting that. I'm just saying that the plan you showed before from Samiotis
Yeah.
in the file there has a different date than the one that's referenced on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Basically,
we
when
can
you
change it to the
revise-
latest one.
I'll make sure, I'll send that to Desheng so he makes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the plan referenced by the latest plan references the right Samiotis plan.
Right, okay, no, that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay, just gotta be picky, get it all dotted right.
Yeah, so yeah, Joyce, so we will make that change, the reference to semiotis plan if you send to me. And I can also, we'll also making sure the latest that the vision date will be October 5th, today's date, for our plan. So then you can put in your ORAD so that we don't have to have conflict of uncertainty in the date of the last revision.
Right, the revision even on the wetland outflow is a 1026 plan from Semiotis. It's also today's date.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. Does anybody else have any issues or questions before we make a motion? I guess,
I
I
do
will-
have a question about this. Maybe Joyce can advise on isolated wetland versus bordering vegetated wetland. And
So the difference is that bordering on is bordering on a stream, lake, intermittent stream. It's bordering on something. And
Yep.
isolated is just by itself. It doesn't have, it's typically groundwater fed or stormwater fed.
so you agree that this wetlands is
I
isolated?
do, but yeah, I do, but yes, it's there's nothing around it. There's a lawn on one side of it and a lawn on the other. There was no connection to another wetland.
Thank you.
any other questions from the commission? I move to close the hearing.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I. Jacob,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Kurt. Maybe Kurt has left the meeting. Courtney,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
we have a 5-0 vote, and maybe the minutes will have to say it's unclear if Kurt returned for 9:45. Unless he can tell us, Kurt. We'll have to get the meetings to reflect he might not have returned for this thing. So it was a 5-0-0 vote. Okay, I move that we accept the approve the delineation on with a plan to come in of October. Let's see, how do we do this? I guess we're approving the plan. Is this plan going to be dated October 6th, with the changes? Is that what we decided?
Yeah, just project
Okay.
updating on that.
Will be
bordering
updated
zones.
October 6th,
Right.
2022 plan from Claw based on an updated October 6th, 2020 base from Semiotis. And maybe that's all it for identifying a vegetated wetland.
So what you're referencing, you meant updating Duchesne's plan is going to reference the older the original Semiotis existing conditions plan. So Duchesne is revising the plan to.
It's revised in two ways. He's changing it to bordering vegetated wetland, and he's changing the reference to the Semiotis plan.
No, he's changed it to an isolated wetland.
Okay,
And that the locations is a reference to Semiotis surveying plan dated October 6th, 2022.
so you're changing that there, and
There isn't a Semiotis plan dated October 6th, 2022. It's the original one.
no, it's dated. I'm staring at
Oh, is it
revision
dated
1.
20? It is. Okay. Then they just signed it today. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm staring at, the thing that you showed me. I was
Okay. my
zoomed in
apologies.
on the revision.
That's why Duchesne's plan is over, because they hadn't signed it yet. They had given him an existing conditions but hadn't signed it. So they
Okay.
signed it today.
Right.
Yes.
I apologize. That's why I was so confused.
Okay, I can see why you'd be confused. Okay, so we have a motion that we are approving the October 6th Claw plan that's going to be revised in terms of the name of the wetland and the reference to the Semiotis base plan which would be the October 6th, 2022 revision. Is that all we need, I guess? Okay, a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I. Matt,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Kurt. Okay, not here. Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
5-0 vote. Okay, so 5-0 vote on 108 Coolidge Street. Okay, we're done with this. Hopefully you'll get those revisions ASAP so we can then clean up the Form 4B. Okay, now it is 10:30. What timing? I am now reopening the continued public hearing for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 0 Washington Street, Assessors Map 7, Lot 49 for proposal to review resource area delineation with Creative Land and Water Engineering LLC representing Robert Murchison. Okay. I guess I didn't ask in the last part of the meeting. I will try to remember, and everybody can remind me, that I think we have a number of people in the audience here who are interested in this one, that I remember to take any questions from the public, which I keep forgetting to do. But I assume somebody would have raised their hand if I was forgetting them. Okay. Take it away, Joyce and DeShang.
So I'll let DeShane go through this, but we met out here I think 2 weeks ago on a Friday and spent a long time walking all the wetland flags. We even had Jacob out here for a good majority of them. And so, DeShang, do you want to do you want to give a narrative and explain what we're looking at here?
Yes, all right, good evening. So this one is a BVW. The majority of the wetlands are BVW A, B, and C series. And it's coincidentally, we also have 3 isolated wetlands in A, B, and C series. One of the isolated wetlands is certifiable vernal pool. We believe it was certified, but the DEP's database seems the location is in error, but that's not important at this point. But we did confirm that that isolated wetlands A is vernal pool, so in the A series, like in the center. The rest of it, so during the site visit, Joyce, Jacob, and I walked the line on September 23rd. We went every frag, and I believe Jacob was there for probably 90% of the wetland frags, and he had to go and until quite to the late of A series and the C series, that Joyce and I did the rest of it. So the majority, and we also conduct volume analysis on all the isolated wetlands just to make sure that they are not qualifying as an ILSF, isolated land subject to flooding, which we provided to our letter in our response to Joy's request. So most of the wetlands stayed in a good position, actually follows pretty good topographic perspective, and there's some are getting connected and eliminated, as we did if you show. So since let me see, so the red ones are the ones get the revision either eliminated or moved slightly and in the field. So, and or we connected them so to eliminate some of the flags, so that making the line a little bit smooth, follow the right contours, as well as to providing a little bit more wetlands protection. So that B is follow the same, and the biggest one is between A30. No, A series was A30. Yeah, A31, 30, A30. Connected 26 to A33A, which was so cut a fairly good big piece. So put in the wetland side. So there was a little peninsula, but we feel it doesn't really making the difference, but it's good to protect them.
Well, so it wasn't so much that it didn't make a difference. Duchesne had this area through here had very, very thick sweet pepper bush. But as far as we did soils through this area and determined that some of his work had been done during the winter, where perhaps he wasn't able to get soils at that time. Very stony out here.
Right.
It was very hard to get down through the soil. But when we did soil, when you look at the ground out here, just visually, we determined that really the line should be up in here to properly represent where the difference between the hydric and upland soils were. And so, and when he says it doesn't really make a big difference, that's not why we agreed to do it. It was because, but in fact, maybe it doesn't make a difference because we have flags here that figure out where determine where the 100 foot's going to be, and here we're determined. So flags in here weren't providing a lot of, they aren't losing a lot of ground when we call this area wetlands, but neither here nor there, that's not why it was done. Again, you can see the dashed lines underneath. We, did a lot of, we spent probably the most of our time in this area through here, just doing soils back and forth because of the,
right.
how poor the soils were.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to get soil samples in that area. So it's quite stony. So, but yeah, based on the topographic features and I think with Joyce and we made an agreement. So to correct those.
Yeah, there was no arguing out there. We were all very happy and agreeable.
Yeah, we'll ask Jacob what he thought. No, I'm kidding.
I missed that section at the end. I stopped at we started at the B section, walked that whole thing, and then I had to leave when we crossed the trail back on the way up the other side.
Oh, so you missed all that fun. Okay.
Well, there were plenty of adjustments before that, but I didn't see that big one.
Yeah, we kind of followed pretty much the same principle, but over that area is the biggest division.
So I would say overall, the wetland line was fairly well defined based on topography and vegetation. The changes that we made are of the flags. You see a lot of red here, but the changes that we made were probably to areas that wouldn't have been as evident with the soil conditions he was working with at the time of year he did it.
Okay.
But overall, I would say his delineation reflected what's happening out there with our minor changes.
And the rest of the site, I'll do my general question that I've asked outside of the hearing, but that
so we walked
you have walked the entire site for the most part to make sure that there are no other wetlands on the site that were not captured at all in areas that were not delineated previously.
So, by the time we finished walking, either with, there were areas that we looked at here because it was very stony. And we did look at the soils here. There was, if you recall, there was a swale here that was very rocky.
Right.
We did soils and vegetation and did not, concluded that was not a wetland here. And basically, we walked the rest of the property, that there are no real ditches as far as along the street. And when you get out here, there's a head wall that goes under the road. We looked at connections between, or I looked at connections. I don't know that I said I'm looking at a connection, but I was looking to see if there was any connection between this isolated wetland and this one here. But there's actually is a physical high point here, and the soils were all upland in this area here, so there was no connection between those two.
Yeah, I remember that when we did the site walk before, that right, it's clearly.
Yeah, we did probably 3 times, 2 times with the DEP. They actually went back, and then they went back not only looking at the Greenwood side, they also went back all the way to go through all the on the Washington Street side. So we probably zigzagging the property quite a few times.
And the Greenwood Street side, that whole area there.
Yeah,
You
this
didn't see
rises
other
up-
than that isolated wetland.
Yeah, this rises up to a big ridge through here, a big hill. So, yeah, and then it comes down to this lower spot in here.
Okay. Just want to, for the record, make sure that those areas, that the rest of the area along Greenwood Street, which is most of the area of the first 40B that's been proposed, is located, that there are no wetlands there, isolated wetlands that were missed.
No, yeah, we check it many times, and yeah,
Okay. Okay. I guess I'm trying to figure do we also, okay, I see all the little changes there. What about the issue of the surveyor base issue that we talked about before? How do we address
Yeah,
that
so
here?
I had, the applicant was able to send me the plan from Semiotis, and
I
thought it
didn't
was a
see it.
plan.
I didn't see it.
Here it is right here, it's in the file.
Oh, is that? Oh, yeah, now I see it. Right, I had it open somewhere else. Okay.
yeah, they provide this to us before. It's just they never stamped it. So until when Joyce raised that issue, Bob, I was out of town, and so Bob had them provided the stamped one.
So
This is,
this one isn't dated. This one's dated for
it's April 5th.
April 5th, yeah, and that makes sense to me. Because they must have prepared this one. They may not have done an existing conditions plan. They might have just given the CAD file. So today they prepared that's when they prepared that, when I asked for a stamped plan.
Where you have, so I guess we're okay, despite the fact that the Semiotis plan does not have all of the, I guess since we're referencing this plan and we're assuming that it's close enough to the other one, even though the Semiotis plan does not have all the flags on it.
So there is a note to the, I made a note to the file. So I went out and measured. I didn't measure these last, we went back out, we backed out and apologize, I'm not speaking well tonight. Went back out and these red numbers are confirmed numbers. But basically we came up with dimensions for how much this flag was, conservative dimensions for how much a flag was moving.
Right.
And so I made notes. These are my notes from the whole way. And then, so this would be part of the record. And that's how the Duchesne revised his plan.
Okay, but therefore the plan that we're going to approve tonight, which is dated, the one that you've been showing us,
Yeah.
which is a revision plan from 9/29. That seems to be the latest one, I think.
It is, 929.
Okay. The notes on the 929 reference the April 5th semiotis, okay. So I guess your document there, so you, I mean, in essence, we're approving that all of the corrections in red that go along with your table that you just showed us, whether you've had a chance to check that.
I have checked that, yes.
Okay. Fine. Okay, I'm going to open it up to other people on the commission, and I'll go to the public. Anybody on the commission have any questions at this point?
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification. So do we feel that the plan that you were just showing is the final plan that we would be approving? Because I think that's important in a 40B like this, that, and obviously because that's the purpose of the hearing.
Yes, that would be the final plan.
Okay. And it reflects your changes.
It reflects the corrections that we made in the field.
Okay.
Anybody else on the commission? You'll get another chance. I just
So,
want,
Joyce and Jacob, you guys have seen most or all of that and agree with all of it?
Yeah, I agree with, I walked through looked over all the portions of it that I walked, and those are the correct set of changes and in the right direction. So those ones look as I expected them to.
Yeah, so we walked every single flag, and if it wasn't evidently upland, I had him do soils. So yes, we walked every single flag, and this plan accurately reflects what we revised the plan to be.
okay, well, if the commission's still thinking, I will now open it up. People in the public who's attending here, feel free to just unmute yourselves and speak, or raise your hand, the symbol, in some way, or if you have any comments or questions whatsoever, this is your time. And I'll say just speak out, just in case I might miss somebody, although I think I see it all. Yeah.
I don't know if it matters for this section of the meeting. A little bit earlier, when someone was scrolling through some of the earlier plans, I thought I saw an isolated wetlands that's sort of on the Greenwood Street side, sort of the right-hand side, that I'm not seeing anymore. Could someone speak to that?
Sure. There is one on the Greenwood side in the plan.
Okay, I missed that. Maybe we were zoomed in and it was off. Okay.
Mhm. Sure. Any other, we got this, okay, Katie?
Thanks, Michael. I'm just curious, given the application that's in now, once this is approved, what, if anything, will come through the Conservation Commission? Or if you're aware of what might come next?
My sense, as we sort of started talking a little before, is that I guess you could show that area there, to the extent that I guess we'd have to pull up the plan. Essentially, to the extent that their 40B plan with for the 4 homes along Greenwood, that particular project, to the extent that there's significant overlap with the wetlands buffer zone, they will have to file likely a notice of intent for what they want to do, because of if any of that work or activity is in the wetland buffer zone. it'll probably be large and extensive enough that it would be a notice of intent. I doubt that it could be an RDA, but I haven't compared. I forgot to refresh myself and see what those 4 homes look like superimposed on this. There's probably something in that plan, but they will have to come before us with some sort of permit to actually do the 40B. Well, yes, under the state, they'll have to come before us, plus we would participate in the comprehensive permit process that the ZBA has to the extent that there are parts of our bylaw that are not part of a state thing. I'm not sure what they might be, but we can make inputs during the ZBA process to the extent that there are parts of our bylaw that we would like to get enforced and that the ZBA can factor that in.
Okay, thank you. So then I just have one follow-up question on the land development page where all this information's been posted. It appears there's a different project that isn't part of the application, and it looks like it also overlaps both wetland and buffer zone. So would that, to your knowledge, be a separate application, or is that still just an NOI type process?
That would be the other side of the wetlands towards Washington Street, if you're referring to that other project there.
Yes,
I
correct.
haven't seen, yes, to the extent that that has any dealings with the buffer zone or wetlands, that would be, again, they would have to file a notice of intent with us, as well as we can participate in the ZBA's comprehensive permit process. So we would be, it would be an issue for us in both those parts.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Okay. Anybody else from the public want to have any questions? Feel free to raise your hand if something comes to you, even as we're wrapping this up. I'll come back to the commission before I close the hearing, and we might have our findings and decision. Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, I move to close the ANRAD hearing for 0 Washington Street.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, aye. Courtney,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Carol. Carol. Kurt.
Aye.
Okay. Have you been here all along or were you away for a
Oh,
while?
sorry about that. I stepped away.
Okay. For the minutes, Kurt, I just want to know whether you were here the whole time since you missed a vote.
I've been chatting you when I had to step away. So if you
Oh,
check.
I don't, just so you know, I don't use the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When I
I had
run,
to step
when I run
away.
the meeting. Okay.
I had to
well,
step
okay.
away 2 different times.
Okay.
If
fine.
you look at your chat transcript, you'll be able to see exactly when.
Yeah, I don't know if that gets lost or what. I guess Deborah, you should look at the chat.
I just sent it to you, Michael. So I'll email it to you.
Okay, sure. Deborah is the one who needs to get it. I
I'll
guess
send it
that
to
should
Deborah.
make a general principle that I always keep forgetting. I almost want to turn off the chat because it's almost the equivalent of people sort of talking in the audience or something like that. That it's not. I don't find it anything that I use. People could maybe put links in there that might be useful, but when I'm chairing a meeting, I do not look at the chat. So if anybody ever, as a commissioner, is trying to make a point in the chat, you better just say it out loud, because I don't follow that. Okay. Then we have a 6-0 vote for closing the hearing. Does anybody have any further comments on our issues around approving the September 29 plan before we make a motion? Okay. In that case, I move that we approve the delineation as contained on the Claw, Creative Land and Water Engineering LLC plan for wetland resource plan of September 29th, 2022, which is based on the Samiotis as referenced April 5th base survey. I think that's all I have to say.
Second,
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? We do a roll call vote. Michael, I, Jacob,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Carol,
aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney.
Aye.
Okay, 6-0. The delineation has been approved.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see how the next process goes. Okay. It's been a lot of hearings tonight. And a long evening. Let's see. I don't think we have anything left on the agenda. Joyce, just to make sure, anything you need to hear from us about?
No, I just wanted to reiterate with you, just to encourage everybody to, between now and Tuesday morning to sign. There must be there's 7 things to sign now.
Thank you, everybody.
Joyce, and Joyce, I'll promise to do that if you fix your audio for next week or 2 weeks.
I will, thank you.
Oh, he's a tough deal there. There's leverage. Although it's interesting as it gets to the point where once we have 4 people signing it, then we can put it out the door. Although generally we like to get everybody, because normally if you were doing an in-person meeting, those of you who've never been here for an in-person meeting, what we would be doing is literally after each of the hearings are closed and we vote on something, we would be passing around a piece of paper that we would all be signing right around the table there. So it would all be done right there in person and done. So I leave it at there. We have a bunch of people here from the public there. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we close our meeting? You can ask about anything, maybe even if it's not specifically on the agenda, since it's nice to see a lot of people.
Not official, Michael, but I sent you something on chat, so I'll hang on since you don't pay attention to chat.
Okay, there's your, at least I got my message out there. Okay, in that case, I move to close the meeting, and that'll be at 10:57. Move to
Second.
adjourn. Okay, any discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I, Jacob,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney.
Aye.
Aye, that's the attitude at the end of the night. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We went through a lot of stuff there, even though there was relatively straightforward at each one.
Good time.
Yes, it's right on time there. I guess doing the NRADs, we learned something. At least I learned stuff just about some of the procedural stuff there that we had to get right. And I guess we'll have some interesting times when we actually see some of the 40B projects themselves that are related to these NRADs. On that note, you'll see what you guys get done on the tree stuff, and we'll reconvene in 2 weeks.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, right. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
For public.